OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Friday morning, OTB AM. Hello, hello. Hope you are well wherever it is you are at. Owen, good morning to you.
Very well. How are you?
Good. Jam-packed weekend of sport. I was looking at it last night, trying to figure out how the hell am I going to wade my way through this. But I have a plan, everybody. I've come up with a foolproof way of getting through tomorrow, particularly. Sunday's not so bad. Because unless you're Carlo from either Carlo or Longford, I think, who play late Sunday, you'll be easily able to avoid the crossover between the Euros and the GAA, particularly. I mean, I do think that even people from Carlo Longford are not going to be that interested in that game on, to be honest with you. There's far better things happening over at the Euros. But anyway, Saturday is where it's at, and there's so much going on. Here's your guide to how you're going to get through all this on, and I'm interested to get your thoughts on it.
Nice one.
Saturday, obviously. It needs to be navigated is the point here. You've got the lines from 3 o'clock, and that's the bit of a sort of a left field bolter. So obviously make sure you're listening to it is the big thing. Live commentary of it on Off the Ball. Neil Tracy will be guiding your way through it from 3 tomorrow. So you can listen to that. I mean, you can watch it and have it on your OTB Sports app as well if you want on the side until about 20-25 minutes into the second half, at which point you're going to need to flick from the lines. Anyway, they'll have a 10 or 12 point cushion, you would imagine, over Japan at that point at Murrayfield, and it'll be grand. So you'll be able to leave that at that point. And as I said, keep the app open and keep the commentary open there. 4:30 Sligo Mayo. So you want to be jumping on some of that action. We're assuming, Owen, and we're hoping and we're fingers crossed, and a plea generally to Mayo without the O'Connors, if they could be out of sight by about half time, that'd be absolutely ideal, because it'll allow you to catch all of Wales-Denmark from 5 o'clock. And if there's any kick left in Sligo, according to my plan, you're going to get the last 10 or 15 minutes of that anyway at half time in the Wales game.
You're not a dual screener, I'm gathering.
So that's the logic. I don't enjoy dual screening, particularly for if it's something like GAA and the Euros. I don't mind if it's golf, probably ideal. Obviously Formula 1 is on over the weekend, probably another ideal one that, you don't need to be watching every single thing that happens. Okay. I just don't enjoy. I find dual screening means that you don't get a proper handle on anything.
Yeah, fair point.
Be my view on it on. So if there's any kick left in that game, you're going to get that at half time in the Wales game. You'll get the second half of Wales-Denmark in full. That's going to take you up to 7 o'clock. Obviously, Owen, you'll be taking in Kerry versus Clare at that point. The full first half of that is all you'll need anyway, because again, you would assume Kerry are out of sight on, obviously, at that point. And you can even indulge yourself, gorge a little bit in some build-up to Italy-Austria. So that's how I have it mapped out, and then you can pick up Italy-Austria until the end. Kerry being out of sight on, obviously, is the one thing that we need to happen here to play ball. And a likelihood, I'm sure you'll agree.
I think Ger was saying yesterday that they're 12-point favourites to win the game, so people are backing them to be out of sight early. I don't think they'll be out of sight by half-time somehow. I think that they might let you down. I think that you might actually need to miss the beginning of that Italy game if you want to actually be a single screener, to be quite honest with you. So it's a good plan. I like it. It's like playing Tetris here, looking at all these blocks come together.
I haven't mentioned the Tour de France starts in Brest tomorrow as well, and I know that's another one. It's another ideal second screening sport. What about you? What's your second screening experience?
Yeah, I'm kind of beginning to realise that the dual screen life just ain't for me. It's tough out there in the dual screen world. Sometimes it's a triple screen world that we have to navigate, or certainly we had to navigate at times late last year when everything got crammed together. It just isn't for me. I'm starting to realise, because you're right, you don't get a true sense of what's happening in either place. Like there is just such there was such an investment from your brain in two different things, and what your brain is actually getting back in return sometimes isn't actually the sum of the parts that you're actually watching. So yeah, it'll probably be a lot of flicking rather than dual screening. I like the sound of having the cycling on though in the background. I think that's a good shout, although you do need to focus on what is it like? Is it a time trial tomorrow in the Tour de France? Actually, I haven't even checked. Or is
it's a stage, I think.
Right, so you can tune in at the end. Happy days. I mean, that's kind of perfect. So yeah, tomorrow don't do anything. Basically, don't look at a screen until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I find that's also important. It's like doing homework or anything really. If you watch something like the Lions game will be the one that we pay most attention to, and our concentration levels will gradually dip to the point where I won't be able to tell you a thing about Italy versus Austria come next week.
That point is massive, I think. Like, manage your day as well. Like, go and do your other stuff. Eat well, get the carbs in nice and early. Like, if you need to get out to the shops, if you have family stuff to do, it's the ideal day for all of that. Like, be if you're a parent, be the best dad you can be up until about 2:30. Like, just do so much, at which point your other half is just saying, well, look, that's absolutely fine. You've done loads here. You take a seat.
Yeah.
Let me get the popcorn for you. We're talking about second screening, but I mean, we haven't even counted in the fact that, I can't watch anything without also scrolling through Twitter. So, I mean, there's that angle to it as well. But I will say, on 25th of June, 2021, 7:30, you need to stick it in your diaries the day you crossed over into old man territory, that you're now the same as the rest of us, in that, your capacity to take in multi forms of information at any one time has left you.
Yeah, I mean, it's all over now, really, and I'm getting to the stage where I now need to start putting the phone away when I'm watching games, because you just get a little bit too distracted. I do find as well that, I mean, this is quite just a personal thing, and maybe it's the same for a lot of people at home, that the midweek games, I find that the concentration goes a lot quicker, because whether it's being up early or, I don't know, focusing on things for the rest of the day, you're winding down while trying to focus on a game of football, and those two things just don't go together. I realise that that's a very boring conversation to bring up, but I'm sure other people are like, yeah, kind of last thing at night is the last thing you want to be doing is trying to dissect how a team is tactically set up or trying to concentrate on anything. You just want pure, unbridled entertainment, really.
What have you anything to offer outside of Belgium, Portugal, for the 4 games this weekend, of which you're most anticipating?
No, I mean, that is by a stretch the best game of the round, and it is the best game of the weekend. It's going to be an absolute cracker. 2 teams that a lot of people pre-tournament would have picked as their teams. When I tipped Belgium, haven't looked perfect, but Portugal have looked far more flawed, and I'm not convinced that they can actually recapture what they did 5 years ago, which is, after a poor enough group stages, going on this incredible run through the knockout stages, which also involved a bit of luck here and there. The thing is, Cristiano Ronaldo has already got more goals this tournament than he did at the last tournament. He didn't even win the Golden Boot last time. He's already on 5 goals, isn't he, at this tournament? And we're starting to not starting to see, we have seen one of the great players go about, I guess, capturing that all-time goal-scoring record in a pretty ruthless manner over the last couple of weeks, which comes with its own level of intrigue. It's impossible to make a case that it's not the best game of the weekend.
Undoubtedly one of the greatest players that's ever played the game, but I haven't been on. I wasn't on last week, and obviously the events with Cork Gate and all the stuff that happened. It'd be really nice to have seen Ronaldo take a stance against something that actually matters, to be honest. Like, he was playing at the stadium the other night where where UEFA decided that they couldn't brandish the rainbow colours because it was a politically requested gesture. It would have been lovely to have seen Ronaldo actually have made some kind of a grand gesture to say that, in the same way that Goretzka did after he scored his goal, that this actually meant something to him and he was willing to stand up for people. But when it comes to taking a couple of bottles of Coke off the table, it's absolutely fair game, and it's such a great popular thing to do. It cut $4 billion off the Coke share price that day. Let's, as Roy Keane would say, let's not kid ourselves on. I think that if in a month's time Coke turned around and said they were going to sign Ronaldo as an ambassador and he was going to be pulling in a couple of million a year for the beauty of it, he would be absolutely all over that. Like, we already know about the list of partners that he has. He's done the KFC ads. Unilever, one of his partners, Ben & Jerry's, HB and Walls ice creams are there. Fittingly enough, Marmite is one of their brands as well. And I would say that, like any of those things in moderation, absolutely fine. And it's just this hypocritical stance from Ronaldo when he had an opportunity around something much more important to actually show a grand gesture. He was found wanting. And it should, unrelated to all of that, be mentioned as well that the case that Ronaldo had settled 10 years ago against Nevada woman Catherine Mayorga has resurfaced again in the last few weeks, and she's suing Ronaldo in an effort to void essentially a non-disclosure agreement that they had following his $375,000 payout after allegations that he had raped her. She's now saying that the NDA was voided by Ronaldo's people, who allowed articles to be printed about the settlement. He's saying that her legal team have procured new evidence, documents that they say were stolen by a hacker, and so makes this entire case void. Still waiting for the judge to rule on that. Ronaldo strongly denying the allegations, but Catherine Mayorga, by Catherine Mayorga, that he sexually assaulted her. So we watch that case with interest. We'll continue to update it. as we get new information on it. It is 7:40. It's Friday morning. Delighted to have you along with OTB AM this morning. We've lots coming your way over the course of the next couple of hours, so stay tuned for that, and do keep your comments coming into us as well. Here's a bit of a flavour. We're going to catch up with the South African rugby writer Craig Gray in just a few moments, ahead obviously of the Lions kick-off this weekend, and then obviously the trip to South Africa, which will follow, and there's loads of interesting stuff there, including the spike in COVID figures. We'll get Craig Gray's thoughts on that. We'll let you know what's happening in the back pages across the newspapers shortly after that. Quick Picks is back, and Will O'Callaghan he's been beating his chest last night to remind everybody is back to defend his title. So we'll all be putting our necks on the block with the GAA picks of the weekend at 8:20. We'll be previewing the national divisional football finals with Aisling O'Reilly and the continuing bubbling up of the Cork-Dublin rivalry as well. That's coming your way just after 8:30. We're going to have Simon Kuper on the line, football writer, one of the most interesting football writers and authors on the planet, will be with us at 8:45 this morning. Really interesting piece about Germany and the FT during the week, so we'll get his thoughts on that, and England and Holland and a few more bits as well. Eoin's been chatting to the Cork footballer Brian Hurley as well. That is at 9 this morning, ahead of the Munster Football Championship this weekend. And unfortunately, from about 9:15 this morning, we have a live crappy quiz, and we'll see how that goes. Ger and Nathan, I think, Eoin, is that right?
Correct, and yourself.
Right, so it's the A team.
It's very much the 18. Champions League nights are back on OTB AM.
Yeah, as I've always pointed out, I am the Tottenham of that dynamic. And a reminder as well that OTB Sports are going to be carrying and broadcasting full live commentary of all 9 matches from that upcoming British and Irish Lions tour of South Africa. Brian O'Driscoll, Alan Quinlan going to be alongside Neil Tracy on commentary for the 3 test matches. Devon Toner, Niamh Briggs, Jack Carty among the co-commentators for the warm-up games, and it all starts tomorrow, of course, against Japan. Andy Dunn will be with Neil for the 3 o'clock kick-off there. It's live on News Talk and our coverage, brought to you in association with Vodafone, who are lead partner of the British and Irish Lions. So that is where that's at, Owen. And I have to say that with the Lions on the brink, it's the sort of thing that people generally tend to forget about until it actually comes around. Like the conversation obviously about who's going to play, who's going to feature, goes on for 6 or 9 months in advance. People tend to kind of forget about it, and then it bubbles up, and you kind of ease yourself into it to the point that you'll be sitting on the edge of your couch, glued to it and shouting on the Lions by the time the tests come around. Are you of a similar vibe?
Big time. And this week we've been watching back the second test from the 2009 tour to South Africa. There's a classic game club, a very special classic game club coming up tonight on Off the Ball with Brian O'Driscoll. So we've been watching that back this week, and it is, and this isn't hyperbole, one of the most extraordinary games of rugby ever played, and right up there in terms of any of the sports events that Irish people have been involved with. And there are a number of Irish players that are central cogs in the wheel that eventually stops turning that day in Pretoria. It is incredible. It is brutal. It is a game that feels like it happened more than 12 years ago because it is so brutal. It feels like it's happening somewhere in a Colosseum in the Roman Empire, that it is that level of brutality that occurs. It's on YouTube. Anybody who is a little bit iffy about the Lions and about South Africa and the challenge that they will pose, I'd urge you to watch it at some point over the course of this weekend or before the tour kicks off, because it is absolutely incredible. And I think now in fairness, this tour is going to be a little bit different, and the situation in South Africa COVID-wise is grim, so we're not going to have the same atmosphere as we had, for example, in Pretoria on that afternoon in 2009. But it is when you get into the middle of it when you're like, okay, this is a war of attrition between an incredibly powerful side and a mix of Northern Hemisphere stars. That's kind of what it's all about, and how much the teams in the Southern Hemisphere care about it, that once in 12 years they get this opportunity to beat the Lions. Whereas the way we look at it, it's like once every 4 years, which is still, what's rare is wonderful and all that. But for them, it's even rarer, and it's even more wonderful for them.
Brian was good.
Excellent, absolutely excellent. There is, like, for people who've seen the game and remember the game, there are a number of really heavy collisions. There's one obviously very late in the game between O'Driscoll and Danny Rousseau, which is particularly grim, where they clash heads, and yeah, it's just this really, and like a couple of minutes later, Brian Habana runs in a pretty decisive try, I think it's fair to say, and he kind of runs around O'Driscoll, and O'Driscoll misses the tackle, and if he was all there, maybe he makes a tackle, but he was saying when we were recording this week that he's kind of happy in hindsight that he didn't make the tackle, because that would have been another knock, it would have been another collision, and it's kind of terrifying when you think about it in that way. Like, there is a number of other car crash moments that occur throughout the game, and I mean that almost literally, like Tommy Bowe suffering from what looks like one of the most incredible cases of whiplash after a legal tackle from Brian Habana at one point. There was just this a slew of different things that you can get into. Brian, obviously a central cog in all of it, not least at the very start when he takes on Victor Matfield, which is a brave move by any young Irishman to take on Victor Matfield on the field, but there was going to be no backward step taken, especially because within the first minute, Schalk Burger had a little bit of a route around in the eye of Luke Fitzgerald, I'm sure you'll remember.
Yes.
And gets a yellow card for it, somehow does not get a red card. So that's in the very first few seconds of the game, and that sets the tone for the following 80
Brian
minutes.
was tweeting as well, I know, during the week, and that was obviously the context to it, the picture of him looking pretty dazed on the sideline. Where can people see it?
It's on the radio tonight, on the OTB SPORTS app from 7 o'clock, off the ball, and of course it will be on YouTube. But for anybody who's got a little bit of time, maybe, you know, if you're taking an extra long lunch break today, you might flick on YouTube, go to the second test 2009. It is absolutely worth your time, even if you only watch the first half and the start of the second half. Well, actually, no, the end of the second. It's all good. You can't just watch a section of that game. You need to watch the full.
It's fine on. It's all people are doing these days anyway. Yeah. It's like working from home stuff. Yeah. I mean, we know what you're at. OTB AM brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Text in here as well, by the way, from our comment in from Sheahan on YouTube. Are you serious, Adrian? Finding flaw with Ronaldo over his coke stance. This is very woke for OTB, which I'm sure he's saying a little bit tongue-in-cheek there. What's your view on it, Eoin? Are you endorsing the great man's sideswipe on the drinks industry?
No, not particularly. It's, as you said, there's a number of different contradictions you could find. Some of them are quite grim, some of them are less grim, and maybe looking like he was taking a chunk out of a nice meaty chicken leg there in the KFC. Yeah, it might be one of those contradictions that pops up. The stock thing, I mean, how much can you actually read into the impact that had on it? I'm sure it had a tiny little impact.
It seems like, and I wouldn't be all that off Eoin, as you might appreciate, with the general sort of behaviour of Coke share price. And when I saw it, I thought 4 billion wiped off. It seems like it does tend to fluctuate wildly.
And also Coke were in the headlines. People were talking about Coca-Cola.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, we are going to continue our rugby chat. It is 7:47. It's Friday morning, and there are plenty of comments coming in about that and everything else as well. So do keep them flying into us this morning, and we shall bring them to our audience. But back to the rugby. The Lions' first warm-up game against Japan at Murrayfield tomorrow. It's live and off the ball from 3 o'clock there, and full commentary indeed of the entire series. Delighted to say that South African rugby writer Craig Ray joins us on the line. Good morning to you, Craig.
Morning, guys. How are you doing there?
Good. Plenty to talk about, and the rugby as well. But we might start with the news that RG Sneeman and Damien Delande have been cleared to return home. They're going to continue their burns recovery after that fire pit accident. Any expectation that they're going to play against the Lions at some point?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I certainly think Linda's in the mix. I think Sneeman's issue is his knee more than the burns. And they're going to have to, monitor whether he's fit enough to play. Of course, they want him to be in the mix. He's one of the survivors from Rugby World Cup 2019, and a big part of the bomb squad coming off the bench. And with Loert de Jager's, fitness also a little bit under the microscope. South Africa is a little bit short in the second row if Sneeman's ruled out and de Jager's ruled out as well. So both will certainly feature if they're fit. And at this stage, it looks like Linda's got more chance of playing than Sneeman.
All right, we'll see what happens as they return home and get back involved. South Africa bracing itself, Craig, for the third wave of COVID. Especially badly hit is the area where the squad are landing into and are going to play the vast majority of the games. All the players are going to be vaccinated. But any sense that with the backdrop of deaths and hospitalisations, and people who are watching us this morning be able to see on screen exactly how the Gauteng area, the daily cases have shot up over the last little while. But yeah, in terms of that context and that backdrop, is there any sense, Craig, that it gets curtailed or cancelled?
Not yet. I mean, I've spoken to rugby officials. They simply just can't afford to cancel it. But the optics are starting to look bad. You're now getting to a situation where there's some hospitals in Gauteng where patients are dying in hallways. I mean, that's how serious it is. It's this is not a joke. And as you can see from that graph, the spike is higher than it ever was in the second or the first wave, especially in Gauteng. And we're not even near the peak yet. And some medical experts I've been speaking to, are concerned. We haven't even started considering whether the Delta variant is part of this equation. And the medical people are also scratching their heads as to why the spike is so violent in the third wave. With the same variant, the Beta variant in South Africa, it just seems odd. They're trying to get to the bottom of what's caused such a rapid rise. So, from a rugby playing point of view, and the squads, they will be locked down in hotels in Sandton and in Fourways, which are northern suburbs of Johannesburg. They will be in biosecure environments. They will be tested. They will, take every precaution. And there's quite a bit of data around doing these biosecure environments from around the world now. We've had about a year, 9 months to a year of various organizations doing this. And there's very little argument that the rugby itself can go ahead and the players will be relatively safe, given that they're vaccinated, given that they're staying in these biosecure environments. But it then becomes an issue of optics. If you go to the Indian Premier League earlier this year, a couple of players tested positive, but by and large, the sort of 300 to 400 people involved with the IPL, from players and staff, were unaffected by coronavirus, living in their biosecure environments. But people were dying in the streets in India, and eventually the optics just didn't look good. People became angry that cricket was carrying on like normal when there was so much suffering in the country. And that's a fear that I have, that we could start seeing happen in South Africa. Lions Tour is massive. There's a lot of public interest. But at the moment, with the way coronavirus is going, people are far more concerned about loved ones and literally living or dying than whether a rugby tour goes ahead. And I think that's going to be the challenge. It's already going to be a sterile tour with no fans, with vast empty stadiums, with no interaction between the players and people. Normally on Lions tours, there will be breakfasts and dinners and speakers and visits to schools and old age homes. None of that's going to happen. This is just going to be a completely sterile environment. And then there's going to be the rugby. And then it becomes a question of, is it really worth it? And what are the optics? And I don't have the answer to that question. But if the IPL is an example, this could go south pretty quickly.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see over that early period. I was reading some quotes yesterday from a hospital professor, Professor Ventnor, in relation to, you mentioned the optics there. The South African team obviously are going to be vaccinated ahead of many more vulnerable people that are waiting to get vaccinated. And you mentioned about the reasons for the third wave, that potentially some of that is to do with the slow vaccination as well. But his point particularly was that the South African team got vaccinated and then did nothing to publicly advocate for vaccinations.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, because they're damned if they do and damned if they don't. They were pushed to the front of the queue, and the way I understand it is they were asked not to shout it from the rooftops, essentially. But when asked in press conferences, they didn't lie. They said, yeah, we were vaccinated. And it was part of this trial called the Sisonke trial, that they brought in a whole bunch of J&J vaccinations earmarked for health workers. And the professors that ran the Sisonke trial, Professor Becker, I think her name is, they offered it to not only the Springboks, but to the South African cricket team, which is currently on tour in the West Indies, and to the South African Olympic team, which is heading off to Tokyo shortly. So it was an offer made by the Sisonke trial. So I think from that point of view, the Springboks ethically and morally did nothing wrong. They were given this, and it obviously solves a problem for them in terms of getting the Lions Tour done. Whether or not they should be advocating for the vaccine rollout, I guess, is understandable that Professor Venter feels that way. But on the other hand, if they start getting bogged down in political causes, and it has become political, you're entering a whole other realm of distraction, perhaps. So when they've been asked about it, they've been straight up and down. Yes, we've got vaccinated, but they're not exactly advocating for it. And again, that's a personal choice perhaps from individuals. And I would imagine someone like Siya Kolisi having strong views on many social justice issues could, if he feels strongly about vaccinations, I don't know whether he does, would be quite happy to talk about it and advocate for it. If I'm using him as an example, I'm not saying that's his stance. So I don't think he would be stopped, put it that way. But I don't think the Springboks as an organisation are going to take a line and say, all right, we're going to start a campaign to advocate for vaccinations. It's probably not their role and probably worth staying out of.
Is there a sense that Kolisi, other players with a real conscience, are uneasy about the tests, the tour happening in general, Craig? Like if you leave vaccinations aside for one moment.
No, I haven't got that sense personally, but they have been locked away as well for, you only see them on a Zoom meeting and so you don't really get to chat to someone in the foyer. On a regular tour as sports, you guys would know, you bump into players waiting for a coffee and you have a little chat and it's off the record and you get more of a sense of what's going on. None of that is happening. And again, that's what's not going to happen on this Lions tour for your touring journalists and fans. There's going to be none of that. So we got no real sense of what's going on other than what comes out officially. Rugby players want to play rugby. The Springboks want to play against the Lions. None of them are doing cartwheels that it's going to be in a cavernous, empty 94,000-seater stadium. But that's, I guess over the last 9 months, all sports people have become quite used to playing in empty stadiums, and it's about the opposition and it's about the game, and they've become quite good at focusing on those things. It's far from ideal. So the reality is, I think rugby players want to play rugby, and if given the choice, they would. But someone like Kolisi, I think if there was a lot of anger and it turned against the Springboks and the Lions, if the country really is, and it looks like it's heading into it is in a crisis, and it looks like the crisis is growing because the rates are picking up around the country as well. You might see people questioning whether it's worth it.
Just one other question I have, Craig, on that. It's like, so you said that they're still trying to establish the scale of this spike in cases, that it seems extraordinary. Like, from what you've heard or from what you've consumed, even media-wise, over the last little while, is there any early idea as to why that is? Is there any, I don't know, situational evidence at play in this region as to why it's badly affected by COVID?
Yeah, I'd be straying too far away from my area of expertise. I've not seen any reasons given, but I think that's a question better asked of virologists and professors of this. But the reality is, it is spiking, and based on the conversation with a highly respected professor, they haven't got to the bottom of why it is.
What about, and I appreciate that this is also a difficult one for you to answer, but in terms of sentiment towards the tour and, once it gets up and running, about levels of engagement from the public, any sense of that at the minute?
Well, based on that piece I wrote, there's been quite a reaction to it, and quite a few people have said to me, one person actually used the phrase, it's starting to feel yuck. It's a small sample. I think there's, even myself as a journalist, I'm really starting to question. I was so excited about the Lions tour. I was so happy it was going to go ahead. And from a purely business point of view, from a South African rugby point of view, it's vital it goes ahead. The income that they're going to earn from television rights is crucial. They lost a lot of money last year, as did everyone. So it's almost critical that rugby survives. The Lions tour is going to give it a cash injection. But I'm also starting to question whether, it's almost, this is probably a poor comparison, but it kind of feels a little bit like playing sport in apartheid. There's far bigger issues at play. And is it really that important when so much else is going on? And from a sporting point of view, you can argue, of course it is, because sport gives a distraction. It's a welcome relief, and it is all those things. But at what point does it become completely nonsensical in a situation where there's such pain and suffering? And I don't know where that line is, but we might find out.
Yeah, Yeah, it is. It is kind of. It is just a grim picture, and like even thinking about previewing matches or even talking about nostalgia or anything like that, it is all tinted with this idea that there is a very grim picture in the country where this is going to happen. It's hard to see a world where this tour goes off and there isn't some sort of negative reaction in some way to it, Craig.
Yeah, you're quite right. I don't think there will be. It will go without a hitch, that's for sure. But yeah, writing a match preview, and your story is going to appear on the same publication that's reporting about 700 deaths in a day. It does feel kind of inconsequential, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the world, take coronavirus out of it. Any given day, anywhere in the world, there's some sort of massive pain and suffering somewhere, and sport goes on, and so maybe we've got to view it through that prism. Yeah. Maybe it's it is the distraction we need.
Yeah, well, that's the case for it, isn't it? Like, and I mean that nobody would argue that the distraction is worth a single death, or somebody who would have been more vulnerable, obviously being entitled to one of those vaccines, but. That's the argument for it, is the great distraction. We've all seen the benefit of that over the last 18 months, how it made life more bearable, the fact that sport came back on some level across the last 18 months and distracted us from the craziness. But look, we'll watch and we'll see what happens on the pitch if we park that for the moment. And again, a conversation I've no doubt we'll be coming back to over the next few weeks. On the pitch, what's your expectation of how all this plays out? Obviously, Craig, the Lions have selected a squad that are big and beefy and ready to go at it. Are we expecting, is that what the expectation is on your side?
Yeah, I think the Lions understand that to beat the Springboks, especially in South Africa, they're going to have to match them physically at least. You can't beat the Springboks if you're getting knocked backwards in contact. It's maybe the All Blacks could do it on occasion. But even the All Blacks, the few games they have lost to the Springboks have always been when they've lost the physical battle. And I think Gatlin knows that better than anyone. His Welsh teams have stood up to the Springboks pretty well over the last 10 years or so, and won more games than they've lost because they've dominated the Springboks physically. And then, of course, you add all the layers on top of that, the skill, the tactics, and the individual brilliance of certain players. So I know some media colleagues in South Africa have been writing the Lions off. I don't know on what we're basing that, because for a start, the Springboks haven't played together for 20 months. That's immediately, you can spin it and twist it and do it any way you like. That's not an advantage. So they are on the back foot. Now, the Lions, of course, they haven't played together ever. This particular group of players, we'll see them for the first time on Saturday, and I am looking forward to that, by the way. But they are players who've been playing rugby, and a lot of them play for the same country, so there's a fair thread of understanding running through the lines. So I think it's going to be a massive challenge on the field for the Springboks. That said, I think the upside of it for the Springboks is that only 3 of the World Cup players have retired, and there's only one injury, Warwick Gallant. So 28 of the 32 players they used, 29 of the 33 players they used in Rugby World Cup 2019 are available for this tour. Snyman with a question mark next to him. So there's a lot of continuity from that. They know what to do. They'll click back into their systems pretty easily, and everyone will slot back in. It will be like riding a bicycle. And they've got 2 warm-up games against Georgia, and they're going to use the South African A game against the Lions as almost a 4th test, because I think you'll see a lot of the Springboks that will feature in the tests playing in that game as well. So there's a bit of time to prepare for the Springboks. They've got home ground advantage, they've got altitude advantage, although that will be nullified by the time the tests come around, because the Lions will have acclimatized as well. So the home ground advantage isn't going to be the same as it normally was, because there's going to be no one in the stands. It's going to be I think that's going to neutralise the home ground advantage slightly, which is in the Lions' favour. And then, it comes down to, it really does come down to who clicks quickest as a team. So I think the first test, I know it sounds stupidly obvious, but the first test is crucial, because I think it's the Lions' best chance to knock the Springboks over. It will be in Cape Town. It could be wet and slippery. It's middle of winter. And, the Springboks aren't great in those conditions. So it's a really good chance for the Lions to get the tour off on a good start. And then, of course, the pressure will transfer to the Springboks because you're at match point immediately. So it's intriguing from a rugby point of view. It really is intriguing.
As a rugby journalist, Craig, does winning in 2009, winning that series, does that rank right up there in terms of South African sporting occasions, right up there with 2019, 2007?
Yeah, I mean, I think the second test in 2009 was certainly in the top 3 tests I've ever attended. I mean, it was brutal, and it had everything. It had drama, it had, brilliant rugby, some great tries. So, the physicality was off the charts. I mean, Brian O'Driscoll clashing with Darnie Rousseau is one of the iconic sort of images of Springbok Lions rugby. That test was brilliant. The first test was strangely meek in a way, all the build-up, and then the Springboks ran into that sort of 20-odd point lead in no time, and the Lions fought back. But the second and then the third test, the Lions were just brilliant. And actually, over the course of the series, the Springboks won at 2-1, and they probably only outplayed the Lions for 40 minutes out of the entire series. It was the first 20 minutes in Durban in the first test, and the last 20 minutes in Pretoria in the second test. And I guess that shows, if you can hang in either side, if they can just hang in for those periods when you're suffering, there's opportunity to win it. It's going to be, classic test match rugby. Who wins the last 20 minutes is really where it all comes down to. You could be out of the game, but, you got to play till the 85th minute in these tests. So, the Lions in 2009 was one of the great. I mean, the 97 series was, of course, fantastic as well, for different reasons. And on that occasion, the Springboks outscored the Lions, I think, by 9-3 over the series and lost it because they didn't have a goal kicker and they had pretty poor tactics, and the Lions were resilient and beat them up front. The history's great. And that's what saddens me about this whole thing, guys, is, we should have 90,000 people in the stands enjoying this. It really feels like, I don't know, I would have preferred it to be in Britain with 50% crowds, Britain and Ireland. I don't know about Ireland. I don't know what your lockdown situation is at the moment, but it looks, watching the Euros, that, it would have been great to have it there. I know the call had to be made several months ago, and with South Africa's beta variant and being on the red zone, the UK government wasn't happy about hosting it there. So there's been so many challenges, and, I also just feel desperately sorry for people who have worked so hard on this. There's so many good people in the South African rugby environment who've worked, and I mean this, they've had to put hundreds of pages of documents together and action plans and operational plans, only to have them torn up by the latest surge and change in government policy and start all over again. It's been a nightmare. So, spare a thought for those people if the tour does somehow all fall apart. I think there's going to be some pretty distraught people for differing reasons, and it really is. It's a tough one. Maybe we should try to focus on the rugby, but I must say I just feel a little depressed about it at the moment.
Yeah, no, I think we were right to spend the vast majority of that conversation, Craig, talking about the main issue at hand. It is difficult to have the rugby conversation in that context, but I've no doubt if it does continue to go ahead, and as you say, it's all indications at the minute that is going to be the case, that we'll be back to you to talk a bit more about events on and off the pitch again over the next few weeks. But well summed up this morning. Thanks a million.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Stay safe. Thanks a lot. Craig Ray on the line there from South Africa, ahead of the start of the Lions tour, which all kicks off, of course, against Japan in Murrayfield tomorrow. It's 8 minutes past 8. We've a packed show still to come here on OTB AM. Our championship quick picks, the league final previews with Ashling O'Reilly on the way, and Simon Kuper all upcoming.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
OTB Sports is the place to follow all the live and uninterrupted Lions coverage this summer. Lions legends Brian O'Driscoll and Alan Quinlan will be our commentators for the 3 huge tests against South Africa. We'll have plenty of expert analysis and input too from the likes of Devin Toner, Niamh Briggs, Sean Cronin and Jack Carty. That's the Lions tour against the world champion South Africa. All the big match build-up, match commentary and analysis live on the OTB Sports app.
Why not check out the Boyle Sports betting app for a full range of markets on shots on target, assists, passes and more on every match of the Euros, all powered by Opta. Rated 4.5 stars on the App Store, you'll find all our latest odds and offers for the Euros. So remind us where to go, Stevie G.
Boyle Sports. This is betting.
18 plus, bet responsibly, gamblingcare.ie.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That is our new Husqvarna Auto Mower.
Auto mower?
Yeah, it's a robotic lawnmower from Husqvarna. Cuts the grass automatically, has GPS tracking and an app. Even works in the rain. I just thought, why spend time cutting grass when I could spend it with the family?
Great! You can put the dinner on, so...
No can do, love. Have to paint the man cave.
Husqvarna Auto Mower. Never mow again. Learn more at husqvarna.ie.
Invisible Threads, a Go Loud original.
As we celebrate the 6th anniversary of marriage equality, Invisible Threads meets older members of the LGBTQ community who reflect on their journeys and tell their stories. From shame and isolation to conversion therapy, from living with fear to coming out as an older person. Join me, James O'Hagan, for this powerful 8-part series, winner of the first Go Loud Podship.
Subscribe to this podcast for free on the Go Loud app.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
All right, it's 11 minutes past 8 here on OTB AM. It's Adrian and Eoin with you up until 10 o'clock. We have a live crappy quiz on the way a little bit later on. We're going to talk about particularly the Dublin-Cork LGFA, the Lidl National Division 1 final, which takes place tomorrow with Adrian Hurley in just a little bit as well. So plenty to come. Simon Kuper is going to join us to talk about the Euros too. So do keep your comments coming in. There's been plenty of them on a whole range of different things. So please do keep your comments coming into us this morning, and we will bring them to our audience as well. So including one from Shifty Lad earlier on the Ronaldo criticism, who says, in fairness to Ronaldo criticism, Tiger Woods was the ultimate person in sport not taking a stand, yet doesn't really get any criticism, which I'm not sure is necessarily that true. I think particularly latterly he has come in for some criticism in relation to that. So that's where we're at on that. We've the GAA quick picks coming up, by the way, in just a couple of moments' time. Will O'Callaghan's going to join us on the line in a moment, and he's going to come on to defend his title. I can't remember on last year by how much he won it. It felt like it was out of sight before the last round.
Yeah, we were all tipping Mayo to beat Dublin and Waterford to beat Limerick. I remember at the end of last year trying to claw back that lead. Yeah.
You're not convinced?
No.
The back pages, including OTBSports.com for you this morning. Danielle Hill qualifying for Tokyo, and I'll come back to that general theme in just a moment on some of the back pages here. Jack Grealish hampers Harry Kane, says John Giles from the show with Nathan last night. Plenty more as well. Get along there on the app. You can download it from your app store or up on OTBSports.com as well. I mentioned the other Olympic story, the Irish Independent Free this morning. We can win 10 medals at the Olympics. This is the report yesterday from Sport Ireland, the High Performance Committee, about how they, as Liam Sheedy says, want to make it sports obviously worth investing in, and that we can win 8 to 10 medals at each Olympic Games in the next 7 years, they say. Our previous best on at Olympic Games in terms of numbers.
In terms of the
count, medal count, Chad, regardless of colour.
I would say 8.
It was 6 at London 2012. So 8 to 10 in that context seems mildly ambitious, but I mean, I think we should be mildly ambitious. You should set that target higher than you expect to get at, I would think, be the thing. That'll be seen as a failure, obviously, in some quarters, but for me, I think shoot for the stars and, you land somewhere for up there and all is good. So that was the High Performance Committee yesterday. Henshaw has unfinished business with the Lions. Good photograph of him training there yesterday. And Kelleher's bumper pay rise and new deal. Caoimhín Kelleher, turns out, was just on, he says. 15 grand a week up to this point, but he's signed a new 3-year deal at Anfield. He's going to remain there. He's not going to see much football, obviously, unless Alisson does again what he did last season and get injured. But a measly 15 grand a week for Caoimhín Kelleher, who was a player that made big contributions for Liverpool last year. Seemed a bit mean on.
Yeah, I suppose it's just the contract he was on. He was always going to get a new deal. There was no guarantee that on your 15k a week you were going to ever become anywhere close to being a Champions League goalkeeper, for example. But he's absolutely excelled, and it's kind of mad that you look at 15k a week and say, God, it actually jumps off the page when you look at it. You're like, wow, what is that tiny number I'm looking at there? But obviously, he's going to be earning a lot more than that, I presume, right now.
Yeah, for doing that very much, probably even less next season, which is...
He'll surely get given... I think it would be in Liverpool's interest to give him cup games, wouldn't it? And like Alisson may get injured again. Like I think he's firmly their second choice goalkeeper now, and that's not a bad place to be in. I do think that there is the responsibility to give him a cup competition or both of the cup competitions. We know that Jurgen Klopp hasn't succeeded in those competitions, and it hasn't bothered him one bit when it comes to the Champions League and the Premier League. Alisson will be his number one. I'd love to see Caoimhín Kelleher be his cup goalkeeper, because I think it'd be for the benefit of the club as well. If Alisson does happen to get injured again down the line, you've also got somebody who's a bit more road tested and ready to go.
Yeah, and I think he will too. And it's so rare that you see a goalkeeper that when he comes in makes an impact, particularly when you have somebody like Alisson and everybody's raving about him. Like there are no Liverpool fans who, like, you know, would be saying our season is done if Alisson gets injured tomorrow. I think people will be quite excited about what he might offer. It'll be interesting to see it'll hamper his international ambitions, obviously, would be the other side of that. The Irish Examiner for you this morning, a lot of focus on the hurling at the weekend, Waterford Clare particularly. That's the thoughts of Derek McGrath inside the real stuff. Ronan O'Gara's column ahead of the Pro 14 final tonight as he hopes to get one better over Toulouse. Giving all of yourself, every morsel to the job. Always interesting stuff. Ronan O'Gara, the Irish Examiner this morning. There, you've had a read of that, Eoin. What's whet your appetite for tonight?
Yeah, one of the things that he says at the top is that if they lose, he takes 4 days to get over it. It's a very specific number. He says he will be sick, as in physically sick, won't be able to move for 4 full days, which is quite something. I think we've all kind of felt that feeling, but as supporters more than anything else, or of people who follow sport, but for somebody who's essentially involved in it, obviously the pain is way more acute, and I'd imagine those days of pain are probably a little bit longer than the days of joy that come after a big win. So like it's interesting, like the fact that this happens what feels like quite some time after the Champions Cup final, that there is 2 crescendos quite far apart, whereas obviously if it was Leinster who were in that position, or Munster or any of the Irish provinces, they would have their 2 finals quite close together. It does feel like this has been a long wait for them to get their season finished again, to those 2 peaks that they had to hit over the past couple of months.
A couple of comments in on Damien Moynier, something like that, on YouTube says, I get Craig's reticence as he's one of the eyes. He's in one of the eyes of the storm, but sport is one of the best distractions from all the woes of the world. Bring it on, says Damien there on YouTube, which is fair enough sentiment.
And you have to kind of think as well when we have these conversations about what is the damage that's going to be done when the Lions actually play games down there, and you'd like to think that in the biosecurity that they have created, that hopefully it is nothing that the damage is created. It's just kind of the optics that really will maybe annoy people in South Africa. There won't be anybody at the stadiums. You'd imagine they'll have essentially hotels to themselves. They'll all be shut off from any idea that they're even in South Africa, I'd imagine. Until they actually tackle a Springbok, there'll probably be no sense that they're actually even in the country, and that is probably as safe as you can possibly be. So it's more the optics of, they're doing a professional tournament, a professional sports event, while we're all suffering here in this competition. And I guess it is kind of a little bit different to other sporting events, like the Euros, for example, where you have maybe a multitude of different countries coming together at once, fans travelling. Maybe even with the Olympics, when you got people travelling from different countries, different continents, different vaccine rollouts, and levels of that coming together in Tokyo, that you can see that's a risk, real risk, whereas the line seems controlled.
Yeah, it does, and like we don't know. It's just the variables is the thing. New Holland saying on YouTube, shameless plugs on OTB about the Lions coverage, as if anyone would watch it on TV whilst listening to it on the radio. Madness, lads. Unless you're in the car listening to it, everyone will watch the TV. I mean, radio's dead. There's no point in radio.
Video killed the radio star.
Nobody would ever say that on, would they?
That's us. OTB AM killed radio.
And then Brian Dillon, one last comment for the minute. Shoot for the stars. He quotes me here. Shoot for the stars, and you land somewhere up there, and ... It's all good. Was that what I said? Brian Dillon gives the date and says, inspiring. Well, look, I'm here for you, Brian. I got you. I got your back. I mean that you understand the point I was trying to make. The Mirror, you're going home. Henderson reveals that he had a wind-up text from Jurgen Klopp and also saying that the young squad will show absolutely no fear. It's a team that exists across a lot of the back pages this morning, that a lot of the players, Marcus Rashford saying that most of them weren't born in 96, so why would they give a toss, which is totally fair enough. Spurs are heading back to plan A. This is like the Spurs madness stuff. There should be like a book written about the last 12 months of Tottenham alone for its a test case in mediocrity. Ryan Mason has been put on standby to take pre-season to Tottenham, and their biggest target, they've moved away from being linked to Antonio Conte and Zinedine Zidane, and they've moved somewhat further down the pecking order with the former Wolves manager. Now possibly about to get that gig. More papers, we'll come back to them in a little bit. Plenty more comments coming in as well. Lots of that good stuff to come. It's 8:20. You're watching OTB AM. We're live in Good Morning Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. We've lots more to come on, but we're going to move to quick picks.
Yeah, let's do this. This is back with a bang this year. Will O'Callaghan, a very good morning to you.
Morning, Eoin. Morning, Adrian. How are you getting on?
Well.
Looking forward to trailing me again in the rankings this year, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. For people new to this slot, Will O'Callaghan comes on OTB AM every Friday morning and tells us exactly what is going to happen in that weekend's championship action while myself and Adrian flail around miserably. Tommy Rooney is also involved in the predictions, but he's on a romantic getaway at the moment.
Right.
So he has texted in his picks. He has literally phoned it in. Let's get our first few up on screen to see what people are going for. I know that there's a few Maverick picks coming up over the next little while, so let's have a look at what's up first, which is the football. So we're going to the Leinster Football Championship, and I talk about Maverick picks. Tommy Rooney is picking Louth to beat Offaly. Myself, Adrian, Will, all going for Offaly to beat Louth. This is the clash of Mahon against Hart. Why is Tommy Rooney wrong, Will?
Look, we should have a good gauge, Eoin, when it comes to all of this, because this is the first time that we've ever had league form that's meaningful so close to championship with a very quick turnaround. But as Derek McGrath writes in the Irish Examiner this morning, you know, it's different stuff when it gets to the championship itself. The argument, I guess, for Louth would be that Offaly played very poorly for most of the game against Derry last week in the Division 3 final. John Mahon and his team felt they needed a day out in Croke Park, and this was an opportunity to play for a piece of silverware and get that big game occasion. And they came up really flat. And it's for Offaly, it's about coming round mentally, because they played really good football, you know, topped their group in the Southern Division of Division 3, and then played very well against Fermanagh in the effective promotion playoff, the semi-final. So, like, Offaly have a lot of form going into this. Louth have got promotion up to Division 3 for next year too. But I'm guessing that Tommy is guessing that Mickey Hart has got some kind of master strategy to overcome Offaly this coming weekend. I still fancy Offaly to win, but I'm probably a bit more nervy about the result than I would have been at 7 o'clock last Saturday when things felt pretty glum coming out of Croke Park. But I still think Offaly have got the better team overall and have been playing better this season and should come through it realistically.
Yeah, I think so too. We're all going for Longford in the Carlow versus Longford matchup this weekend, so no pressure there. Meanwhile, myself and yourself, Will, are both going for Wicklow to beat Wexford. Tommy is with us this time, but Adrian Barry, why have you gone for Wexford?
Well, I think that we have to look at some of those 50-50 games, and I do think that the point that Will makes there about Offaly and Louth particularly, there's loads of momentum with both of them, and it definitely is one of the games that I could see going either way. And I feel similarly about Wexford Wicklow, and I think that I knew that you schmucks were all going to go with the obvious pick, so I just thought there is an opportunity earlier to deliver a body blow to the three by going slightly against the grain. I know obviously Wicklow beat them last year. Wexford nabbed Sligo, I think, in the Division 4, was the Shield final last weekend. That's in their favour, obviously. I think it's tight. I think it's 60-40 probably against the way I'm going. The winner plays Dublin as well, by the way, and it's Louth and Offaly, I think, are on the same side of the draw. Well, if I'm right, all of these conversations are so moot ultimately.
Louth and Offaly have Kildare, depending on who wins. I'm totally against Adrian here, by the way. Wicklow are actually my lock of the weekend. I saw Wicklow a few times in the Southern Division in Division 3 because they were playing against Offaly. I was really impressed. I wasn't surprised when they beat Cavan a couple of weeks ago to stay in Division 3. Yeah. They're coming off the back of a huge result. I think if there's any one result that's going to happen this weekend, and this clip will be brought up to hurt me if Wexford win, I think Wicklow will beat Wexford this weekend. They're
the trending team in Leinster, really. I know, like, Offaly have had a very good spring. No, like over the last couple of years, Will. I mean,
from the base they're coming from?
Yeah, of course. Sorry, I mean exactly that. From the base they're coming from. Obviously, last year in Division 4 they were really impressive. I mean, it's just very hard to get a read on any of these teams when the Leinster Championship, as you say, Adrian, will always end in defeat at one stage or another. But the progress signs are good, it seems. So, like, I'd be kind of with you on that as well. So it's more of a lock than Longford over Carlow, even though we're all unanimous on Longford, Will?
Yeah, I think so. I think, again, Longford had a really good result against Tipperary a couple of weeks ago, so they're coming in with massive momentum into the championship itself. But I just think Wicklow are a really solid team. I think I'd even fancy Wicklow if Wicklow were playing Longford this weekend. I think Wicklow have been really good. That's maybe me setting them up for a horrible fall, but I think they'll definitely have too much for Wexford.
Those two teams
different for a while.
Two of the worst teams in the country. Carlow and Longford.
I think that's harsh on Longford, to be honest.
I think they're in the middle third of the country.
I mean, geographically, yes, and then every other way, Longford particularly, they're brutal. I mean, they're not going anywhere anytime soon.
Adrian's broadside on the Leinster Championship just is something we're going to have to get used to here every single week.
Well, look, there's a lot of the phony war about it. West Meath will probably meet in the other. That might be the game of the Leinster Championship, actually.
There you go, Adrian, writing off leash straight away.
100%, yeah. I think, look, you know yourself, I think Westmeath were so unlucky over the course of the league. I always go back to it, the grain of rice could have easily gone the other way in all three games. They could have ended up getting promoted.
They could have had a plate of rice.
They could have had a plate of rice on. But I mean, I know it didn't, and so you look like a mug, but I'm just saying that I think actually Westmeath are not that far off it.
I think Westmeath are a good side as well, in fairness, and I think they were unlucky to lose that to Cork a couple of weeks ago. So we're moving on to the football in Munster, and there are two unanimous picks here for anybody listening to us on the OTB Sports app. Kerry against Clare, we were all going for Kerry. Limerick against Waterford, we're all going for Limerick, which is probably a sign of where Limerick are at, that nobody is a little bit shaky over that, but probably more realistically a sign of where Waterford still are at, that they really can't see them beating Limerick. So any nerves at all here, Will, about tipping Kerry? And will we put points on it? How big do you think the Kerry win will be?
The Kerry result probably won't be by a huge scoreline. I mean, Clare have had a terrific year and only narrowly missed out and gone up to Division 1 football, and were unlucky that they got Mayo in terms of their game for the promotion playoff. But Clare have had a solid year. You know, they were good in the second flight the season before too. They've kind of been upperly mobile in the last few years, and it feels a matter of time before they get up to Division 1 with the way that they've been playing. So, it's not a gimme in any way for Kerry going into the weekend, but you would expect the Kerry are going to be so driven from last season, and where they'll feel that they left the Munster Championship behind them. They should have been there contesting the All-Ireland Championship with Dublin at the end of the year, and they weren't. And I would imagine that the pain of that means there's no chance of any kind of complacency going into their first fixture this weekend. Clare supporters have every reason to be optimistic going down there this weekend. You know, you take the factor of the crowd out because there's only going to be a couple of hundred people there. I think Clare will put in a very credible performance, but I think Kerry have improved on last year. They've got a better balance about their team. Pat Spillane was saying yesterday the forward line looks like it's actually motoring as a unit now too. I fancy Kerry to go deep in the championship, and if that's going to happen, they have to beat Clare this weekend. So I think they're going to win tomorrow evening, yeah.
I think Clare supporters have every reason to be unbelievably frustrated with the championship structure this year, because this is a team that's ready to make its mark on the Super 8s and actually get that far. I don't think they'll get out of Clarny with the good results.
What's the difference?
What do you mean? What's the point difference? Again, Will, you put your neck on the line earlier on saying lock of the week. There's a reason why the bookies have this down as a 12-point win. I think Kerry will come close to a big win, but we won't be sitting there after 50 minutes saying, oh, well, they've hammered them out the gate. It'll be something that just opens up in the latter stages, because we've seen it against Tyrone, we've seen it against Galway. This Kerry team has a habit of absolutely savaging a team in the course of a few minutes. And what's interesting is that both of those games happened in Kerry. I know there's no crowds, Will, and Adrian, I'm not sure what you think, though. I do think that home comforts do matter somewhat. Is there a familiarity with the dressing rooms, with the fact that lads are driving themselves to games and they're only over the road from Clarny? I think that this is having an impact, and I think in Cusack Park there is not a hope in hell I would be saying that Kerry stand a chance of winning this game by double figures. But at home, I do think they can rack up a big win. Again, I'm putting myself in a terrible position by saying that.
Well, I'm glad you made that last point, because I think we should just give an advisory to our viewers that we seem to be talking Clare up, a team that have beaten Laois and Kildare, the mighty Laois and the mighty Kildare, over the last few months. That's a recommendation of nothing against a team who are ultimately, like Will said, I would go way further than deep into the championship. Like, there's a lot of people saying that they're going to beat Dublin this year. I think they're on a different level. 12 points is about right, I think. I was going to say sort of 10 or 11, but I'd easily go with 12, and I think it will be done. I think that the likes of Clifford, obviously very happy leading from the front, and like tends to take a lot of focus off a lot of the players, like unbelievable players that are around him. And there is, Dermot Connolly said it after week 1 of the league, that there's something different about Kerry this year, and I'm going to go with that. And I think that I think 10 or 12 points easily, and loads of time to switch over to whatever the other game that I said earlier on that's happening in the Euros was.
Yeah, Italy-Austria, isn't it? Right, okay, so the Connacht and Ulster Football Championships then. Sligo against Mayo, Down versus Donegal. Surprise, no surprises here. Everybody's gone for Mayo and everybody's gone for Donegal. On Mayo, it was interesting, kind of like going through this team that they announced yesterday. It seemed that everybody had retired over the course of the winter, and everybody who didn't retire got injured over the course of the league. And they still managed to name 10 of the team that started against Dublin in the All-Ireland final last year. Missing Cillian O'Connor, for me, rules out their opportunity of actually beating Dublin this year, I feel. But I think we're maybe underrating what Mayo are building here on some level. Like 3 of the Young Player of the Year nominees last year. Remarkable consistency in team selection, given they've been ravaged by retirements and injuries, as I say. And I think that we're going to see a couple of really impressive showings from Mayo in this year's Connacht Championship.
Yeah, realistically, that's what we should see. I mean, like James Horn, for all the players they've lost, and like they've lost a handful of those who've been involved in this golden generation who've come up short in a couple of All-Ireland finals. Like, they were able to blood 3 players last year on with championship debuts. They all go on to get All-Star nominations, which is helped by getting to an All-Ireland final. But the next generation of Mayo players from some good underage teams are now starting to come through. Those players have stepped away, have left space into the team. The issue would be that Cillian O'Connor's scoring dependency last year, and also having to go into the championship now trying to work out who their free taker is going to be, given that Cillian O'Connor was always the automatic option for that, causes a few questions going in. But at least it's not a case of having drawn Galway or Roscommon in the first round. Like, they should have time to have a look at things, tinker around a bit, and beat Sligo at Markovich Park. They should come through at a canter tomorrow afternoon, you would imagine. And they're on a great side to draw, because they've got Leitrim then in the semi-final at home, to then have themselves warmed up for playing Roscommon or Galway in the Connacht final. So they should be able to ease their way into it. But yeah, I mean, the concerns about not having Cillian O'Connor, they're huge. Like, he scored, 550, I think, last winter. That's a huge amount to take out of any team. Yeah, it's a ridiculous tally he racked up. So everybody's going for Mayo there, everybody's going for Donegal there.
By the way, just one on that, like whatever it was, 9 points in the Ireland final. Are they going to put, what's the solution to it? Do they put Aidan O'Shea up? What's the... Like, that'll be the most interesting thing, I think, from the Sligo game, getting some sort of a sense of how they cope post-Cillian.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, those first 15 minutes, to see how they set up. I want to move on to the hurling, because there's some nice disagreements happening here. Dublin against Antrim. I'm going for Dublin, Adrian's going for Dublin, Will, you're going for Dublin. But can you explain why Tommy, on his romantic getaway, has texted me to say Antrim are going to beat Dublin? Why has he gone for this, Will? Has he got carried away with the league?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, Antrim have to come with the health warning that they were in Group 1B as opposed to Group 1A, which was a slightly easier group. But Antrim were really impressive in a few of those games. Yeah, they beat Clare in the first round, which I'd imagine is a big part of Tommy's thinking here, which was a huge result for them. They beat Laois in the kind of phony war of the last round of games, and they got a very credible draw against Wexford. Hurled reasonably well against Kilkenny, so they were competitive pretty much across their fixtures. Still, it's the case of them, with the exception of the Clare game, probably performing to par outside of that. This one has a huge importance on it as well, because quite aside from it being a route into a semi-final in Leinster, the losers of this game will play in a qualifier, which doubles up as a relegation playoff. So your year can be pretty much wrecked if you were to lose here, albeit whoever doesn't come through will probably expect to beat Laois, giving away my pick for Laois against Wexford when it comes to that relegation playoff. I think Dublin, though, like, you just about give them the nod in this one. I think, given the way that the two teams have hurled so far this year, like, Dublin have gone about their business really well in Group 1B2. You know, they won the games that they needed to stay up. It's a bit of a coin toss, but you would imagine that Dublin's slightly superior panel will see them come through. But this is one of the closest games of the weekend. Like, don't be surprised at all if Antrim pull a small upset, because it would only be a small upset if they were to win. Yeah, and that's why Tommy's gone for them. The rest of us gone for Dublin. We're all going for Wexford to beat Laois in that one, and then we are split down the middle on Waterford against Clare. Myself and yourself, Will, going for Waterford. Tommy's gone for Clare, and Adrian, you've gone for Clare.
Yeah, I think I backed the wrong team here is what's happened. I look at, am I going to try and make a case of them? No, I'm not sure. I mean, Shane O'Donnell is out, right? Did I read that during the week? Which is probably not a great recommendation. It is definitely one of the tightest games, I think, over the weekend. Waterford, their position last year was probably not a fair reflection of actually where they're at, but even that might be enough to get past Clare this weekend. There's some really good previews of it actually in some of the papers this morning about the physicality of it, and that it's not necessarily one of the biggest traditional rivalries, but actually in the modern day will be a belter. And I'm not going to be surprised if Clare win it. Tommy's going for it because he couldn't set foot outside the door if he didn't go that direction. And listen, I'm all up for causing a bit of mischief, so I'm all in too.
Yeah, no worries in this one, Will.
Yeah, look, Waterford were really impressive in the league. They finished in second place in Group 1A. They got 3 wins from their 5 games. They've shown again that they've got loads of firepower in terms of their scoring up front, which I think will prove the difference at Semple Stadium on Sunday afternoon. I did back Clare to beat them in the championship last year and was proven totally wrong when Waterford came through with a very impressive performance, albeit Tony Kelly was far from 100% fit that day. But, I think Waterford will back up the fact that they got to an All-Ireland final last year. I don't think they'll get to an All-Ireland final again, but I do expect them to progress and get through to the semi-finals in Munster, and I think they'll just have too much for Clare this weekend.
Nice one. Well, enjoy the weekend's action, Will, and we will lock in Wicklow as your lock of the week. You've heard it here first.
Thanks, lads.
They're your quick picks for this week.
We know what the headline of that piece is going to be, and suddenly everybody wants to see what's going to happen with Wicklow, Wexford. That's the objective of these things. So good stuff. Back to those again next week. It's 8:36 almost on this Friday morning. We've plenty of comments still coming into us, by the way, on the various topics. Westmeath for Sam, lads, says New Holland, which is good, man. I mean, ambitious. He also says, glad to see the Champions League crappy quizzes back. The Europa version is always lacking that extra bit of quality. Dara O'Toole on the same note says, I couldn't be more excited for the crappy quiz. Great to get the gang back, and I hope AB, the social justice warrior, has a question about Katie Taylor in there for good measure. Owen.
I haven't asked you one of those for a while, actually.
And Shifty Lad says, come on Wicklow, it's the hope that kills you though, always to the core. Thumbs up. So there we go. Even some Wicklow fans watch us this morning. 8:36. Do keep those comments flying into us. This morning we're with you until 10 o'clock, and as I've been alluding to there is a live crappy quiz coming your way in about half an hour's time, so stay tuned for all of that. But it is time to turn to the Lidl divisional football finals this weekend. Delighted to say OTB's Aisling O'Reilly is on the line. Good morning, Aisling.
Good morning, lads. How are you?
Really good, and really excited for the latest iteration of Dublin Cork this weekend, and reading some of the previews and looking back on what's happened obviously in last year, the last meeting particularly between them. There's nothing between them, and nobody would be surprised if Cork could get it done tomorrow.
Exactly, yeah, definitely, Adrian. It's a repeat of last year's All-Ireland final when Dublin just got on top of Cork last December it was, and that was their 4th All-Ireland in a row. But Cork are the reigning Division 1 league champions. I think people sometimes forget that. So, they have a lot of experience in the league, and I think it's 12 occasions now that they've appeared in the Division 1 final, and they're going for their 15th time since 2004 to try and win it. Well, say Dublin are chasing just a second little Division 1 title. So sometimes people are a bit surprised by that. But they did meet in the league as well earlier on, and Dublin just edged out by a point. It was in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. It was in round 2 of the league, so it was such a tight game. But looking back now, Cork might be happy enough that they didn't get over the line that day, that they're going in now tomorrow. Maybe as underdogs, I'm sure they are, but I think they'd be happy enough going in like that. They've a lot of experience when it comes to the leagues, and it's definitely going to be a cracking game. But yeah, as you said, both of the teams have a wealth of experience, and they will be trying to right those wrongs now from the last year's All-Ireland. And I think from the last year's All-Ireland as well, they went out a bit defensive. They didn't play on the front foot. They were, they're normally very much attacking, and they didn't do that last year. So I hope they play like they've been playing in the league so far. And I definitely think they'll put it up to them. But look, it's hard to look by the Dubs. They know how to win. And when they're behind, as they were, say, in that previous league game with Cork, they just kept calm. They responded. They get back on top. And then you see the bench as well. They're seriously impressive. Anyone that comes on for them is just as vital for them. So, yeah, they have a lot of competition for places there. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be a cracking game.
It helps when keeping calm helps when you have Hannah Turl to lash in 2-2 in the course of 3 minutes. Any game can turn on that. But like her return, Aisling, and like both players have lost a couple of big names, obviously, but Hannah Turl, particularly for Dublin, and her reacclimatisation from rugby. I mean, there doesn't seem to have been any reacclimatisation. She's right up to speed with it straight away.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like, she hasn't played since 2014 for Dublin in inter-county. So it's just unbelievable to step in there. And her first game that she played for them, she scored 1-5. And then she followed it up, I think, was it 6 days later, 2-7 against Cork, in Perky. So it's just unbelievable. She's taken the frees for them. She's just been massive. And like, they lost the likes of Noelle Healy, who was a major blow for the Dubs. But then you have the likes of Hannah Tyrrell, who's a similar style of play. She plays out on the half-forward line as well. She's very much attacking. She runs up and down the line. She plays similar to Noelle. So, they just literally put Hannah in there, instead of Noelle. So it's unbelievable that you can actually do that in a team. Not many counties will be able to do that. So, yeah, obviously we know she played with the Ireland rugby team as well, and she just retired this year as well. So just unbelievable to see what she's done. So yeah, I'm excited to see her play now in the final and see what she comes up with.
Talk to us about like the lack of the loss of Sinead Goldrick and Derna Sullivan to either side. Like, seems like a big blow. And then actually, when you scratch away at it, there's loads of young talent coming through, particularly on the Cork side, and the impact that'll have, and maybe which side is better equipped in terms of that bubbling up of brilliant young players.
Yeah, I've seen it with Dublin the last few years as well. Niamh Heatherton, she played in the semi-final against Mayo. She's only about, I'd say she's 20 now, and she's been knocking on the door to try get a place on that team. She started against Mayo in the semi-final and she got a goal within the first few minutes. And that was her, I think, moment of Mick, putting her hand up like, I deserve a place here. So she's constantly coming on over the last number of years, and I'd say now she's hoping she'll get that start in the final. But you do have the likes of Niamh McAvoy as well. She's coming off the bench a lot when she'd normally be one of their main starting players, but she's coming on and off just because of Hannah. You have Lindsay, you have Sinead up there as well, so it's so tough to be on that team. And then with Cork, it's the same as, you have the likes of Vera O'Shea last year who came on the scene. She blew the place up when she came in, and she's been getting a start in place, the last year, 2 years now. And it's so competitive. So, I wouldn't fancy being on any of those teams trying to get a start in place. It's tough, but any winning team, that's what you want. That's why Dublin and Cork are so successful, because the bench that comes on is just as strong. And that's what you want. You want to be constantly competing for places. And, yeah, they definitely have that.
How important is it for Cork to beat this Dublin team pretty soon, to actually get over the line while they are close? Because there is a sense that maybe this gap could perhaps widen over the next little while. Like, we have to remember that Cork are also the most recent winners. They're coming off, they have a winning culture that exists in the county, at least from the last few years or so. They are the best place to take down Dublin, but it kind of feels like they need to do it soon.
Exactly, and I think it's the thing with them that they're actually just like, will we ever do this? Will we ever get over the line? It's that team you have in your head that you just can't get over the line with. But last year, as I was just saying, that they did play that bit defensive, and I think that's wrong going out a team like against Dublin. You sort of tell them straight away, oh yeah, you're that bit ahead of us here, we need to go out defensive. That's what that gave to me when I was watching against at the All-Ireland last year. So I just hope that they go out on the front foot, they go out attacking, they play like they play against every other team, and they don't change it up too much against the Dubs, because their system is working. And that was just a little thing last year, that they changed the system up. So if they just don't do that, and look, when they're on the attack with the O'Sullivan sisters up front, you have Orla Finn up there as well. She's a brilliant free taker for them. She's under pressure. She's always rose to the top. So if you can just get the likes of them on the ball and, just play like they played in the league, don't mind that it's Dublin. Put that to the back of your head. It's another game, and just, try and get over the line that way rather than building it up so much, because I think sometimes that's what happens,
Yeah, and it's a great rivalry, and that's the latest installation of it. We normally have to rely on Tommy Rooney to overstate the case of Meath football here, and he does it on obviously such a regular basis. But you're about to jump in as well, Aisling. What did Division 2 final Kerry and Meath, and Meath, the rise of Meath football over the last few years? Go on, we need somebody to fill the void. You've got the platform.
Okay, you have 2 minutes, go. No, but it is unbelievable. Like, we talk about the men's, that's Tommy constantly, but actually Meath ladies football should be talked about. You know, over the last number of years, they've been in the All-Ireland final the last 3 years. They got over the line last year against Westmeath. That put them up to senior. In 2019, which was the last league because of COVID, it wasn't played last year, they won the Division 3, which put them up to Division 2, and now they're in the Division 2 final. Like, it's becoming regular for them to be in Croke Park, which is mad to me. I never seen that growing up, to see Meath ladies playing in Croke Park, just like it's the norm. So it's brilliant to see, and they're coming up against Kerry, who obviously have been playing senior over the last number of years, and they'll be gunning to get back to Division 1. You know, they got relegated, I think it was 2018, and they'll be really trying to get back up there to try and mix with, you know, the best teams in the country. That's where you want to be. So, yeah, it'll be a really tough game. They did meet earlier on in the league I think it was round 1, and Kerry bet Meath by 6 points. But I think now Meath will be happy enough going in there because it was their first game up against a senior team, say, since they got promoted. It was 6 points. They were missing a few of the girls that day. I think they'll be happy enough going in underdogs. You know, they would rather have lost that game knowing they were going to meet them in the league final. So, yeah, I think they're exciting. They've been together the last number of years now, and they've really stuck together. They went through a bit of a transitional period, but the core group of girls have stuck together, and I'm excited to see what they do. But, yeah, Kerry's going to be a seriously tough opposition, so it'll be a good one to see what the outcome is.
Yeah, and 4,000 fans back, which is really exciting as well this weekend. Are we, after all that, Aisling, looking at a Dublin-Kerry outcomes?
No, I think Meath can do it in Division 2. I think they'll be a bit of a shock there. I think they'll get over the line. It'll be very, very tight. And then with Cork and Dublin, I think Dublin will just edge it. They just have that little bit extra that they'll just edge it. I think the bench will be the difference there, and the likes of Hannah Tyrrell.
All right, well, look, we'll keep an interested eye on it, and no doubt catch up with you again in the not too distant future. Aisling, thanks a million.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Aisling O'Reilly there, looking ahead to the Lidl divisional finals this weekend. Shifty lad on YouTube. On serious question on would you be anyway as interested in Gaelic football if you were from Wicklow like myself? You're lucky you get such a chance to follow a good team and have a good summer. Thumbs up, thumbs up.
Like, I mean, that's a very good point. I think we're all extremely fortunate by the team that we follow, or
not.
In the case of GAA, what is essentially is your geography or where you're born or where you live or whatever. So it's an extremely fortunate thing to be from a place that might have a good team. But I'm sure Shifty lad maybe chose Liverpool Football Club when he was when he was a young Shifty lad, and is now reaping the rewards as an old Shifty lad supporting Liverpool Football Club. We all have these moments of luck when it comes to sport.
Yeah, 8:47, loads of comments in, and do keep them coming into us as well. We're going to turn our attention now to the Euros. Delighted to say football writer, author Simon Kuper joins us on the line. Good morning to you, Simon.
Good morning.
And thanks a million for taking our call. Excellent piece about German football in the FT this week. It was before, I think, the Hungary game, if I'm right. A great quote there from Bertie Votes that German footballers used to dance like refrigerators but still beat the best teams. Maybe they still dance a little bit like refrigerators, Simon, was the thought that I was having, but their capacity to beat the best, and on Wednesday's evidence particularly, is gone.
I don't think they dance like refrigerators as much anymore. I mean, they now have, some of Europe's most skillful footballers, players like Kroos and Gundogan. So, I mean, Foss was talking even more generally than that. He said something like, have you ever been to a discotheque? Look at the Germans, they dance like refrigerators. And he said that applies in football and applies in life. And that was an era, from the mid-70s through the 90s of quite ugly German football, which they got rid of. They decided to remake themselves on the model of Spain, and they play a much more sort of passing, prissy game, but they're not invincible anymore.
I was really interested in your point within the piece about the country being nostalgic for German virtues. We're nostalgic here for virtues that we've never actually seen, which is nice winning football. Are the German public okay with blunt but winning football?
No, I mean, the Germans had got fed up with blunt but winning football. And so in 2002, when they reached the World Cup final, cause for celebration in almost any other country, playing, grotesque football, there was this sense of enough is enough. We don't want to be doing this anymore. We don't always want to be the villain of international football, the Darth Vader who slays the beautiful teams. We want to be a beautiful team ourselves, and why not? Huge football country, great tradition. And so they said, we're going to start playing pretty football, if you like, and we'll take it from there. And so first Jürgen Klinsmann, and then Jogi Löw, and they revolutionized all their youth academies to prioritize kind of little ball playing midfielders on the Mario Götze model. And it worked, and they won the World Cup in 2014. And for about a decade, they played the best football the German teams ever have. And of course, you can't stay at the top forever. They're still, let's say, one of the 5 best teams in the world, but they're clearly not as good as France.
Yeah, we want to. What was the Brian Clough quote? Yes, we want to win it, but we want to win it better. Is kind of what it feels a little bit like.
Yeah, and also they say, you know what, and if we don't win, that's okay too. So in 2006, when they lost the semi to Italy, playing, pretty football, and got slayed, Germans were ecstatic. People were jumping into the Spree River in Berlin. It was like a party, because winning, Oliver Bierhoff, who was, the guy who scored the winning goal that won them ugly Euro 96, now general manager of the German Federation, he said around that time, I've noticed that fans don't really focus so much on winning, they want to party. And that's particularly true in Germany, where you can get up to 1 million people sometimes gathered around big screens at the Brandenburger Gate in Berlin. Football matches got turned into German parties.
When you put all that in the mix, and I read some Dietmar Hamann comments in one of the papers this morning that the German rivalry means far less on the German side than it does. The German-England rivalry means far less on the German side. When you put that in the mix with those expectations and the position of German football at the minute, what is your expectation for Tuesday night?
Home advantage helps. It helps less than in the past. It helps less in a less full Wembley. England are probably as good a team as Germany nowadays. I think if it goes to penalties, the kind of ghosts of the past will sit on the players' shoulders, and so Germany would probably win that. I think it's going to be a close game, hard to call. I also think on the English side, the rivalry is not what it used to be. I think that there's this trilogy of great England defeats to Germany, 1970, 1990, and then Euro 96. And that was a time when German football seemed invincible. It was ugly, when there were a lot of fears about Germany as the kind of superior economy. Why had Britain won the war but lost the peace? I think a lot of those frustrations had gone. The Germans are not invincible or ugly in football anymore. A lot of, the English themselves are so divided over so many things, and especially on the liberal left, let's say, Remain side of England, there's a lot of affection, huge affection for Germany. In general, British people in surveys say they're quite pro-German. So I really don't think that this game has the needle that it once had. And also, of course, it's a repetition. There comes a time, partly when you grow older, but also as international football grows older, that every match is a repetition of past matches. When we're talking now, we all remember past England, Germany's. And I think that makes each new match sort of less raw, less emotional, less important, if you like.
It's interesting that you mentioned the Liberal left there. Do you think that is a connection that they have with the English football team? Do you think it's one that's growing as a result of maybe their protest and their consistency in taking the knee before games, that there is a narrowing of the divide between the left and this English football team?
Well, England is in this kind of cultural civil war, has been for 5 years now. And oddly, what's happening is that the England football team has allied itself with the Liberal left by taking the knee. And, in his very kind of liberal-seeming manager, Gareth Southgate, whereas the England fans at matches, the small group of people who go to England matches, small particularly at this time, are much more on the, let's say, Brexity side, and no doubt will be chanting 2 world wars and 1 World Cup at German fans. So I think the big rivalries that English people now have are with each other, not with Germany.
It's an interesting point, and I guess it's what we're going to see. I guess it's more distilled down, as you say, in a less full Wembley as well. Do you think, kind of on a footballing level, then, that the English fans will get to a point where they'll want to win pretty eventually? I know at the moment it is just win by any means necessary, but do you think they will reach that sort of German level of appreciation or wanting something higher from their football than just winning football?
I think that there's this aspect of English fans that they're not so much seeking to win pretty, some of them, but they're seeking to win passionately. And that what they want is players clattering into tackles, risking their heads in clash of heads on headers, the kind of Terry Butcher with, bleeding head image. And so, whereas the Germans crave prettiness, I think the English look at today's team, which is very organised and quite boring, and wish it would be a bit more old-fashioned, a bit more blood and thunder.
Your point about English people, and I don't want to misparaphrase you, so do interrupt if I'm doing that. More at war with themselves than they are with the German people. Does that get parked once kick-off comes, Simon? Like, does it suddenly everybody realise actually we do really dislike this crowd, and suddenly we're all very vociferously against them? Or how do you see that?
I don't think that most English fans dislike the German team. I mean, Chelsea will have more players in the German team than in the England team, probably. There are a couple of English players who play in Germany. For the players, of course, they have much more in common with the guys who are playing against them than they do with their own fans. They live in this kind of life of first-class airport lounges where their mates are other footballers from other countries. So, no, I don't think that when the whistle goes, suddenly England fans are going to hate the Germans and it's going to be all kinds of, you started it, you invaded Poland stuff.
Yeah, I suddenly have a David Squires column in mind with English fans carrying German flags. I'm not quite sure it'll go exactly that far. What's your expectation for what happens? Germany obviously need to really step it up from where they were at on Wednesday night.
My predictions are always wrong, but I'm going to predict that England edges this one narrowly.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one. Will you talk to us a bit about Belgium-Portugal? I think it's probably the game of the weekend on Sunday. Portugal, in my view, looked ordinary for large parts, maybe against France. Obviously a game of penalties, and Portugal needed them badly. I felt it to hang on at that time. Maybe shades of their 2016 route, Simon, or how do you think Portugal are going to go from here?
Portugal, I think that I'm focusing more on Belgium. I've been sort of caring more about Belgium. I grew up in Holland, so we have this odd sort of somewhat supporting the Belgians, but we hope they don't actually win the tournament thing.
Yeah.
And so I look at the Belgians, and how would you play against them? Well, the great anxiety is when De Bruyne and Lukaku combine, and then you see kind of the best of international football. Azar is not the player he was, and I think the Portuguese will be looking at the Belgian back three, who are, Belgium can choose between slightly substandard players like Boyata and old players like Vertonghen, or a mix of the above. And so that's a very vulnerable centre. Cristiano will be saying, as he always does, I'm sure, get the ball to me as quickly as possible. I'm going to take on these central defenders. So I think it will be a very centrally focused Portuguese side, and both teams have sort of half a great team. And if you look at how Bruno Fernandes can come on off the bench against France, wow, that's riches. And yet both Portugal and Belgium, compare them to the French, who have sort of 9 world-class players. The Belgians and Portuguese are somewhere below that.
Yeah, that's for sure. You spoke to Kylian Mbappe for Esquire before the tournament kicked off. There is a sense that maybe if he's going to explode into this tournament, it will be quite like 2018, where the knockout stages are the Kylian Mbappe stages. From speaking to him, from understanding him a little bit more, Simon, what have you learned about the elements of his personality that make him the competitor and the great competitor that he is?
I think that what really was important in making him so great so young was that both his father and his uncle were amateur football coaches. So, I mean, his father was kind of the main coach in the suburb of Paris where he grew up, Bondy. And so from the age of 4, Mbappe was sitting in changing rooms listening to tactical talks. And, you know, after a game, every game, there'd be a debriefing with his dad. And he said to me, I can think like a coach on the field. And he said, very few footballers can. Most footballers, he said, are worried about their own game and they can't see beyond that. But I can see if a teammate is not in the game, what's his problem, how I can put him right. And that's a very rare gift. So he grew up knowing the codes of football, not just the tactics, but also the culture. So when he walks into the Bleu changing room at 18, you know, as the next, you know, great player, he says nobody wants to give their place to an 18-year-old, especially if he's been, you know, heralded as the next great. And so nobody wants you there. And he knows exactly who to sit next to on the bus, how to behave. He said, you can't be too humble. You have to be modest, but you can't be self-effacing. You have to show that, you know, you're demanding a place. And so he has a very, very old man's understanding of how football works on the field and off the field. So and then as a footballer, he's both a natural, you know, nobody faster than him, perfect control, who's also perfectly coached, both by the French system, you know, which is very, very good at producing footballers, as we've seen, and by his family. So and he comes from a very sort of disciplined, ambitious, but, you know, head screwed on family.
How protective is his father of him in those situations?
I mean, I was interviewing him. This was during COVID. We'd all been tested, but it was still not a very safe situation. There were about 6 people crowded around, you know, as people always crowding around Mbappe in a small room in this villa that he owns, that he uses as a kind of foundation for his charity work. And I was asking about police violence. I said, look, you've spoken out about police violence recently. And he said, yeah, it took me a long time because I had to find my ground as a, you know, as a star. But it's something I care about. He said, I oppose all violence, not just police violence. And I said, look, you know, it must be personal to you because police violence in France is very much aimed at non-white young men from the suburbs of Paris like you were. And then his father, sitting next to me, who I hadn't noticed before then, big burly guy, he suddenly starts speaking and he says, we're not going to answer that. We're not going to go there. You're presenting police violence as if it's just against this group of non-white young men. It's not true. It's against lots of people. And I think what the father is managing is not just Kylian on the field, but also they're very wary of setting him up as a young black man who's against the police or against the French mainstream or calling France out on racism, because they understand that to be a hero, to be beloved in France, which he is, you have to tone down the blackness. That wouldn't be accepted by the public as large, where, you know, country where 30% or so is sympathetic to the far-right Rassemblement National Party, where a lot of French fans still think there are too many non-white players in the national team, where a lot of fans don't accept that a bad boy who's of immigrant origin like Karim Benzema is really French. They feel he shouldn't be in the team. So it's just such a sensitive thing in France to be a black hero that they're trying to manage that.
That's really interesting. So I mean, it seems like almost ludicrous to even suggest this, but has there been any impact on the relationship between the people in the banlieue and with Kylian Mbappe, or is that perfect? Does that softening of his views impact their view of him as a legitimate man fighting for their cause?
Well, I mean, it's quite brave of him to come out against police violence. I mean, sure. It is something where you could suddenly find yourself up against the far right, which is not a small group of people in France. I think right now Mbappe is very widely admired and beloved, and there were beautiful pictures during the 2018 World Cup final of thousands of people in Bondy sitting in front of big screens, you know, their faces painted with the tricolours, cheering on France. So the idea that the suburbs of Paris are somehow the lost territories of the Republic, as the far right likes to call them, seem very false. I mean, this was the Republic, as James Macaulay of the Washington Post said. So I think that right now it's hard to find a more popular person in France than Kylian Mbappe, but he knows that you're always walking a tightrope, and you say the wrong thing and suddenly you're the bad boy, you're the new Benzema.
So maybe it's the smart play, Simon, to do what he's doing. That it sounds like, from what you're saying, that he himself probably would like to have gone further, but that maybe the smartest thing is, because my instinct when you said that was that it's a shame that he couldn't be as giving maybe as he would want to be, but actually in the long term perhaps that's a smart play.
Look, I don't think that whatever a footballer does can change France much. You know, Zinedine Zidane regularly topped the 6-monthly French poll of most popular French person. So regularly, Zinedine Zidane, guy of Arab origin, was the most popular man in France. And a lot of, you know, the most popular French entertainers are blacks or Arabs or Jews. And it doesn't seem to translate into a weakening of the far right. You know, we've been here for more than 20 years. The World Cup '98 was supposed to, you know, create a new vision of a multicultural France that wins and was supposed to defang the far right. So I wish Mbappe well in his, I wouldn't quite call it a crusade, but in his speaking out against police violence. And I hope that extends, but I don't think it's going to make much difference.
Just one final point I had for you, Simon, before we let you go. Obviously, you mentioned the Dutch-Belgian rivalry there. Is there Dutch confidence ahead of Sunday and ahead of the tournament at large?
I mean, Holland has quite an easy route to the semi, playing the Czechs and then either Denmark or Wales. I think it's fair to say that we're better than those teams. But look, as Holland fans of a certain age, we've seen much better Dutch teams than this. The generation of 74, the generation of 88, the generation of 98 were, I mean, even the generation of 2010, 2014 were superior to what we see now. I mean, there's one Dutch player who's indisputably world-class in Frenkie de Jong. De Ligt and Depay are not far off that. But there's a lot of rather mediocre guys in the team. So it's sort of a pastiche of past Dutch teams. So we have to get very lucky to go beyond the semi.
We'll hopefully catch up with you again down the track. Always really interesting. Thanks a million, Simon.
Thank you.
Author and football writer Simon Kuper on the line there with brilliant insight into lots of different areas, and definitely add to all of our collective intelligence, I think, as we watch the football over the weekend. So appreciate that, and we'll definitely catch up with him again. There was, as we debated pre-show about what we were going to talk to Simon Kuper about 14 more topics that will probably take up a couple of hours that we'll definitely hope to try and come back to at some point, as I said, again down the line. It's 6 minutes past 9. It's Friday morning, you're watching OTB AM. It's brought to you by Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. We've still lots to come for you. And by the way, a flavour of what's happening on OTB Sports Radio today from 11. We're going to have the latest iteration of our Euro show. It'll be Sheahan and Enda, and they're going to be joined on the line this morning by Eoin Dunphy to look ahead to the weekend's knockout rounds. OTB Gold with Ogie Moran from 1 o'clock to get on in the mood for the weekend. It'll be Friday night racing from 3 with Ger and Johnny, and guest today as well. It's Eoin Heary, the League of Ireland legend, in the hot seat for Team 33 from 4. 6 o'clock, Keith Andrews and Philly McMahon for OTB Gold, and then OTB live on the radio from 7 this evening. We're going to take some ads now, and we're back after these with Eoin in conversation with the Cork footballer Brian Hurley.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
During that game in Munich last week, I got a text off one of Pogba's family, and it just said, different animal. He doesn't feel the pressure of France, feels the absolute confidence of his manager. That's not to say he doesn't have a good relationship with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at United.
And they played the style football, which has made, Italians stand up and be entertained. And instead, Mancini has wanted everyone to have fun, train with music on.
For the best Euro 2020 coverage, download the OTB Sports app and subscribe to the OTB Football Podcast.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That is our new Husqvarna auto mower.
Auto mower?
Yeah, it's a robotic lawnmower from Husqvarna. Cuts the grass automatically, has GPS tracking and an app. Even works in the rain. I just thought, why spend time cutting grass when I could spend it with the family?
Great! You can put the dinner on, so...
No can do, love. Have to paint the man cave.
Husqvarna auto mower. Never mow again. Learn more at husqvarna.ie.
Why not check out the Boyle Sports betting app for the latest betting and stats on every player and team with the Boyle Sports Euro Stats Centre. Rated 4.5 stars on the App Store, you'll find all our latest odds and offers for the Euros. So remind us where to go, Stevie G.
Boyle Sports. This is betting.
18 plus, bet responsibly, gamblingcare.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Today, as Cork GAA sponsor, Sports Direct unveiled its Born to Play campaign for the championship. Sports Direct is calling on parents of newborn babies from across the Rebel County to register their baby's name to be with a chance of featuring on Cork GAA's very own Walk of Fame around Páirc Uí Chaoimh and receive a Cork GAA kit. The Steps to Greatness celebrates all newborn babies born in Cork in summer 2021 who, like the greats who have gone before them, are born to play. Parents can register online and the names will be on display outside Páirc Uí Chaoimh ahead of Cork's championship openers this season. Delighted as part of this to welcome Cork footballer Brian Hurley to the show. Brian, how are you getting on?
All is good on. All is good. Everything's opening up slowly, so I'm a happy man. GAA is back and supporters are hopefully be coming back into stadiums fairly soon, so I can't complain at all, to be honest.
It's amazing, isn't it, that when we look back at, say, the last year for the Cork footballers, there's been so many amazing moments that have occurred independent of the supporters, as you say there, when Cork GAA is so well known for its fans and its connection with the fans.
Yeah, certainly. You'd miss them around the stadiums, you know, especially probably last year's championship would have been great to have them, especially in the park two times and with no supporters. But look, you know, I suppose for such a big county, they do come in their numbers, especially on championship day. And hopefully, look, in the next few weeks and months, things will open up safely and you get it back on board with us.
Are you the type of person who, once the ground gets hard and the summer gets going, that you love to have those chats in the street when people are stopping you, asking you, will you beat Kerry this year and stuff like that?
Yeah, look, it's all part of it, you know what I mean? It's all part of it, but you'd have that every day down in West Cork. They just live and die for it down there, to be honest. No matter what village you're walking through or driving through or what shop you're in. But it's good, like, you know, it's great. And, you know, for the likes of them people too, they miss it as much as we did. So hopefully, look, you know, I was looking at the Euros the last few nights and the last week and stuff, the crowds are nearly full capacity there. So hopefully, you know, back here, sooner rather than later, we will have crowds back.
Fingers crossed. How did you feel that the league went for Cork this year for you?
Yeah, look, it's one of them leagues, you know, it's a very tricky league, Division 2. There's a fine line between getting promoted and relegated. And I suppose, look, we had 3 away games. You know, I think we underperformed for 30 minutes against Kildare. That cost us really, like, you know. And that was probably a big game at the start. We were away to Clare, and with, you know, for 10 minutes, the last 10 minutes, we were down to 14 men, and we won by a point, which is a great win up there. And, you know, in the last day, like, you know, we had a very good win against Westmeath, but probably conceded a bit much at the back. So, you know, there's work to do, and the next few weeks we'll be tightening in on that stuff. But we're looking forward to championship. You know, who doesn't? We're 2.5 weeks out now, so it's all going blazing, really.
There's been a real sense over the past couple of years, especially in championship, that this Cork team is ready to make a breakthrough in some capacity, whether it's Kerry last year or running the Dubs close the summer previous. Is that your feeling as well?
Yeah, I think we're improving and we're building each game. You know, I was only thinking the other night, we played the last 12 games we played competitively. We've won 10 of them, like, you know.
Right.
So that's, like, you know, there's probably a different perspective out there. We probably underperformed in 3 of them. Roscommon in 2019 in the Super 8, which was probably a small bit of a dead rubber game because, you know, we couldn't get through. It was definitely one of them. And, you know, Tipperary last year, we definitely didn't turn up in the day. And we got punished for it. And, you know, I suppose 30 minutes against Ting. But other than that, like, we've been fairly solid. We've been loading a lot of new young fellas through. Likes of Sean Meehan is a massive leader, or Shanley. They had massive games last year, and they'll be getting stronger this year. Then you have the likes of Colin Manny after a very, very good league. Okay, picked up a hamstring injury the last day. Next day, Dan O'Donnell started and man of the match. So, like, you know, I suppose you have a lot of the under-20s, you know, coming off the back of an All-Ireland coming through now and putting pressure on the likes of the older fellas, which is great, like, you know. So, no, I think we're building, and, you know, people's perception of there might be different, but we know we can achieve it in-house, and we're just looking forward to championship.
What's the main emotion that comes to mind when you think about the 2020 championship?
Roller coaster, really. Yeah. It was like, you know, look, it was a great win against Kerry. Look, we believed in ourselves. We knew we could do it, obviously, like, you know, but and like, you know, I don't think we were going in cocky to a Munster final. Obviously, like, they're a good team and whatnot, but we just weren't at the race in the day. Like, you know, looking back, our tackle count, our shot efficiency, even in, you know, in the first half, I had 2 wides. Second half, we still had chances to come back into the game. We just didn't take them. And if you don't take them at this level, you'll be punished no matter who you play. And you've seen other shocks throughout the county or throughout the country, and in similar positions. If you're not on in the day, you'll be punished severely, and that's what happened to us. But overall, like, you know, it was so exciting to get back, and everything was 100 miles an hour the minute you got back in there, like, you know. But look, I think we've sat down, we've looked at our mistakes, and we're trying to implement them in this year's league and improve on that. And I suppose, reflecting back, like, personally, you have to look at yourself, like, you know what I mean? Why was your performance off? Could I improve better? And that's probably what a lot of I did during the lockdown this year when you're training on your own, small things that you can improve on, and bring it into this year's championship. And that's the name of the game, like, try to learn from your mistakes and bring it into a new one. But we're certainly looking forward to the championship, and I think we're building nicely.
It's interesting that you have that statistic ready to hand, that you had 2 wides in the first half against Tip. Does that suggest that you've studied that closely and thought about it quite a lot?
Yeah, I would be. I'd always study my game, where I can improve, where I can get better, you know, and that's just part of an inter-county player. I think every player is in the same boat. You know, if I'd clicked him too, it could have been a different game. It could have been a different outcome at half time. And, you know, you just analyse, maybe one of them wasn't on, one of them was on, I was thinking. And that's just the way it is. Like, you'd always look back, though, to improve, even if you had a good game, you know, not just in case you had a poor day at the office. You'd always see to where small little things where you can get, you know, small fine margins to make you a better player.
The thing is, we tend to sort of write a championship off and say that is 2020's story and it has no bearing on the next year, which is rarely the truth. I'd imagine that the positives from last year, which was beating Kerry for the first time in a long time, that changes the scope of what you can do this year completely. I'd imagine, Brian, that you'll have that confidence if the two of you meet again in the Munster Championship. Yeah,
sure. Like, it's a funny old game. Like, you know, like, we were in Division 3 last year. We came through, obviously got promoted to Division 2, but, like, there was no talk of us. We were, you know, everyone was saying, you know, we no hope in championship and stuff. And next minute we were the bee's knees. The next day, everyone wanted to talk about us after the Kerry game and whatnot. So, like, you know, if you're not on your toes at this level, as I said, you'll be punished. Like, you know, the pace of the game has gone to a new level, the fitness, the physicality. But if you don't turn up and perform on the day, you won't be at the races, like, you know. So, like, what you need to do really is, like, you know, just make sure you all have your own house in order and bring it on the day.
You've been speaking before about being written off before that game, and I think a lot of people say that after a game. I think you genuinely were written off before that Kerry game. I think it's absolutely fair to say it. Was there any specific piece or any specific person that said something that really pissed you off in the build up to that game? Because I know Pat Spillane, for example, has been touted quite a bit in the aftermath of the game.
Yeah, look, you'd always have it, like, you know, they're free to open to speak their own mind, like, you know. But no, obviously you can add fuel to the fire and whatnot, like, but, like, we genuinely had a game plan and a mindset, and we brought it. But, like, you know, we got our pat in the back, whatnot. We didn't bring it to the Munster final, and that's where you need to focus in. It can't be just a one game wonder, like, you know. So, look, it's a chance to rectify it in this year's championship, and that's what we need to do, really, like, you know. And you're only as good as your last game, as they say, and, you know, it's in a strange way. The Munster final, you know, obviously it was a knockout championship. We didn't get a chance to rectify ourselves after it, so it's a long wait, and I'm sure it's in the back of fellas' heads that they want to rectify it, and hopefully we can do that in the coming weeks in Championship.
Yeah, it should be a cracking Munster Championship actually when you look at the side of the draw that everybody's on as well. Just one other thing, how is the body holding up, Brian? I mean, like obviously terrible injury a few years ago.
Yeah, it's good. In fairness, now I'm actually very happy in the place I am at the minute. I suppose, like, you know, last year was a long enough year for me. You know, I missed a good bit of the league. Didn't came into Championship with not the whole lot of training done, but was happy enough in ways. Then obviously went into the club scene, and the club scene went on very long, and you know, we made a county final that hasn't been played yet. So it was a long season. Then you go into pre-season again on your own. So, but I think I ticked a lot of boxes early on when I could do the small things, you know, when you had time to do them. And I'm benefiting from that now at the minute because the body feels good. But that's down to the credit of, you know, Kay Smith, our S&C coach, and we have a very good medical team in fairness who, you know, we're constantly on the phone, constantly touching base, and it's either maybe, yes, let's push it on tonight, or else, no, not tonight, you're on off feet tonight. And there's very good management there, and I suppose there's good communication between us all, because the level of training that it's at the minute, you just have to be extra careful.
I can imagine. It was a hamstring off the bone, was it?
Yeah, ruptured my hamstring off the bone in July 2016. Had a surgery here in Cork, and then obviously I did 13 months rehab, and
Jesus,
my first game properly back, I played 20 minutes 2 weeks before it, and first game back about 15 minutes in, I had a reoccurrence of the same injury in the same area, and I just did a bit of research, and I found Faris Haddad, the Prof Haddad in London, who would, you know, obviously he operated on a lot of top professional athletes in rugby and soccer and stuff. And, you know, I did my research well, and he was the guy I needed to go to. And thankfully, he had full confidence. He get me back playing, and here we are. So, no, it's a funny one, to be honest. Like, I know whenever I do interviews, it's always mentioned and stuff like that. But you know, it's only when it's taken away from you and something you thought might be over. You know, you're only grateful to play it again. And I just can't wait for Championship and play ball at the top level, to be honest with you, like, you know.
I think that people's ears are pricked when they hear about that particular injury, because obviously it ended Paul O'Connell's career. So it's right up there with the cruciate ligament injuries as the really terrible ones. But it's great to hear that the body's going so well. You look at some of the other Cork forwards down through recent years, like Colm O'Neill, Kieran Sheahan as well. It's almost like there's a hex placed over you at times, isn't there?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I know it's part and parcel of playing, like injuries and stuff like that. But we do get crucified, like, you know, over the last few years. Like, we had Kev Crowley's out with the last year with his shoulder. Liam O'Donovan did cruciate. We've Kilna Hanlon and Aidan Brown this year. But, like, you know, we don't make excuses. Look, it's next man up and you get in. But level of training at the minute, look, you see Killen O'Connor and a lot more with serious injuries around the country as well. Like, just us. But look, I suppose the strength of the character is, like, you know, you see what Colm came back from with 3 cruciate injuries. Kieran, you know, after cruciate, you know, to play at the highest level in Ireland and go on to play professional. It just shows the person they are, really, like, you know, and it's how you bounce back from the injuries, really, define the character you are, like, you know. But they obviously do make you mentally stronger as well from what you go through, you know, from, you know, training sessions on your own to, you know, being outside the bubble of Cork football and whatnot. So, you know, in a very strange way, it makes you a better person, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Really interesting. Just a reminder, you've been listening to Brian Hurley over the last little while, and today, as Cork GAA sponsor, Sports Direct unveiled its Born to Play campaign for the Championship. Just to let you know that Sports Direct is calling on parents of newborn babies from across the Rebel County to register their baby's name to be in with a chance of featuring on Cork GAA's very own Walk of Fame around Páirc Uí Chaoimh and receive a Cork GAA kit. The Steps to Greatness celebrates all newborn babies in Cork who were born in the summer of 2021, who, like the greats have gone before them, are born to play. Parents can register online, and the names will be on display outside Páirc Uí Chaoimh ahead of Cork's Championship openers this season. Brian, great to hear from you. Great to hear that the body's doing well. Very best of luck for the next couple of months. Thanks a million.
Thanks very much for that, Eoin. Appreciate it.
Chris Waddle.
Oh, you're kidding me. September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right?
I know, it's not right.
Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell?
Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on Irish radio. It's the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it's the splendido crappy quiz. Every Friday we pit three of Team Off the Ball up against each other in a no-holds-barred quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome today's contestants. Our first contestant today brought his Lions jersey to the shop and got Henshaw 13 placed on the back, and he's ready to wear it for as long as it takes for another superstar from the Midlands to arrive. After 30 years of wearing his John Aldridge jersey under every single outfit, this truly is the end of an era. Give it up for Adrian. Who's your daddy, Barry?
Could be player of the tournament.
You're calling it now?
Probably, yeah.
Nice, big moment for you and your people then.
Player of the series, is that the official term?
I was going to say, come on, player of the tournament.
Yeah. Give us one of the South Africans you might think might be player of the tournament.
Damien Diolanda, good possibility. In the opposite number, Nathan.
Yeah. Our next contestant today is ready for his career to go to the next level over the next little while. His impersonation of Tommy Rooney last week captured the hearts and minds of the public, and combined with his lust for golf, he is ready to follow in the footsteps of his hero Conor Moore. Primed and ready to go viral, it is the beast of Ballyhaunis, Nate Dog Murphy.
Unfortunately, Tommy Rooney's the only one I can do.
I missed this.
So did I.
Can you do it again?
No, it takes a special level of anger and annoyance to get there. But,
stay tuned.
You don't care. You listen to the football. You listen to the football pod. You know what he's like.
There was a lot of anger and a lot of frustration last week, which Nathan channeled into a truly historic moment. Thank you for that. We're still loving that. He's not here to defend himself. Our last contestant today, as you've heard, is hoping for some success for the Lions over the next few weeks. He wants them to smash every opponent and hammer every team they play. However, he also wants every Welsh player to drop every ball, miss every kick, and have a generally miserable experience. Ready to support the English and Scottish and Irish Lions this summer, it is the artist formerly known as the Mustachioed Menace, Ger Gilroy.
We're all Lions now. We put aside the petty differences around the Six Nations and come together as one unique blend of Celtic mysticism. I mean, if there's no English player in the team, it's not really anybody's loss, is it?
I thought Eoin was introducing himself there for a second.
Oh. I mean, I've got no Welsh phobia going on here. That's for sure. I'm over it as well. As ever, the format is a classic crappy quiz with a series of questions on a range of themes, and it's onto the slip and slide of trivia, which is the rapid fire round. You can podcast a crappy quiz on otbsports.com or on the OTB Sports app. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to give us a thumbs up, even if you contribute nothing but misery to your day. Please send any questions you have, please, via postcard to Crappy Quiz Quizmaster, Off the Ball Towers, Marconi House, Diggs Lane, Dublin 2. Round 1, the boring questions round, is never multiple choice. Adrian, you're first up. How many test matches have the British and Irish Lions won this century so far?
Oof. Test matches have they won? So
count them out loud there for us.
So 1, 5.
Come on.
159. 159.
Is he getting 3 hours to do this?
What do you?
I thought Adrian was there. Was Adrian not at one of these test series? He never brings it up.
He's never been to Australia. We would have heard about it.
I was never at a Lions. I was never at a Lions test, Nathan. I don't know what you're on.
Oh, are you not?
No.
What are you?
Thanks for dropping in that nonsense. Anyway, that's
Come on, you're just wasting time.
What's your final answer?
I'm gonna go with.
Come on.
I'm gonna go with.
Come on.
8.
No, it's not 8.
5.
5 is the correct answer. Rugby man Nathan Murphy steps up and gets it right. 1 in 2001, 0 obviously in 2005. They won 1 in 2009, 2 the following series, which they won against Australia, and then last time out they won 1 test. So
very hard question.
It's a total of 5.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Nathan, according to FBref.com, which team has notched up the highest expected goals so far at the Euros?
It's a site he's not familiar with by the look. Football man Nathan Murphy.
He's got it open there in front of him.
Denmark?
No, it's not Denmark. It's the Netherlands.
Yeah.
The Netherlands with the highest XG so far. Ger, question 1 for you. Can you name the last team to win a Football All-Ireland travelling through the back door?
Okay, so it wasn't Dublin any time that they won it. It wasn't Kerry when they beat Donegal. It wasn't Donegal. Ooh. Was it Cork or was it Tyrone?
It's very Nathan style response there, Jar.
What, having some actual knowledge?
No, just cycling through a lot of nonsense. That's, you know.
Well, getting to the point, did Cork come through the back door in 2010? Jesus. I don't think they were strong enough mentally. I'm going to go Tyrone.
No, it's Cork.
Oh, they were strong enough mentally. Wow.
God, that was absolute sacrilege to suggest that about Cork. How dare you?
I just hated that Cork team because they'd stolen All Ireland that Kildare should have had. That's just pure bollocksology, bitterness on my part.
2010, famously, of course, all the provincial champions got knocked out in the quarterfinals on the same weekend.
Famously, Eoin, famously. Thanks. Thanks,
a great day.
Round 2 is the
We were in Killarney, were we? Was that day?
Yeah.
That was that day, yeah.
Yeah, there was...
when I first realised that Nathan Murphy was an argumentative prick.
It was like a day after you met him.
I haven't changed my view since.
Here we are.
Round 2 is the Intercounty Managers Round. Nothing says championship is here quite like our annual Intercounty Managers Round. I'm going to give you the name of a current Intercounty manager, and all you've got to do is tell me what county they are manager of. Adrian, who is Davy Burke managing?
That is a good question, Eoin. Who is Davy Burke managing?
Okay, go on.
So this is a Nathan response. So they play football in Cork. There's, you know, Kerry like to play football. There's a hurling team there.
That's not a Nathan response. That's an Adrian Barry.
Davy Burke.
I'm just buying some time because I don't have a clue.
I'm going to go with.
There's no point in buying time when you don't have a clue.
Not a clue.
You just got to guess.
Seeing as I rubbished them earlier on, I'm going to go with Carlow footballers.
No, it's not Carlow. It's Wicklow. Wicklow, yeah. Jeez, Nathan's getting all of Adrian's questions today.
Not getting any of his own, of course. But
Nathan, for you, Shane Renane is manager of which county?
Good name.
Ooh, I'll live up to Adrian's accusations. I was going to say Leitrim, but that's Terry Hyland's still at Leitrim, isn't he?
I mean, I wouldn't be going through too many, you know.
It is
a very eliminating options here for the next.
Sligo?
No, it's not Sligo. Tony McEntee is Sligo, isn't he?
And by the way, just we need a specific code on. I'm assuming here. This is not like.
Where is it?
What does it mean? A specific code?
Did you say is it football or?
These are all football managers.
Ah, right. Well, I mean, I wasn't even aware of that. Like that. I didn't even get that information. I think I should be asked again.
It's he's the Waterford football manager. Ger.
What are you laughing about?
Oh. The confidence with which he said, "What's Longford?"
I didn't. There was definitely a question mark at the end there.
Ger, who is Shane Roach managing? The stunned silence all around. Truly, championship is in the air.
Limerick.
No. Billy B is Limerick manager. Wexford is the answer.
This has been a humiliation.
Well done. 0-0 after 2 rounds. The Champions League of the Crappy Quiz is back with a bang. Round 3 is the sweet nostalgic last 16 round. There is nostalgia and narrative dripping off these last 16 ties in the Euros over the next few days, and this round will test how well you know your nostalgic stuff. Adrian. Denmark take on Wales in the last 16 of the Euro 2020 in the very, very familiar with the Republic of Ireland derby. But can you tell me which of the teams has Ireland scored more goals against in the last 5 years?
Oh, my God. Who have they scored more against the last 5 years? It won't be many either way, will it? I'm going to go with Denmark.
Correct.
3 for Denmark, 2 for Wales, is it?
Yeah, bang on.
So I was thinking myself, Nathan, yeah.
The aggregate scores are Wales 6-2, Denmark 7-3. So, yeah, Denmark the correct answer. Nathan, England against Germany is the pick of the ties this round, but can you name one player not called Michael Owen who scored in the 5-1 win for England against the Germans in 2001?
I mean, really, Owen?
How do you mean?
Emil Heskey?
Correct.
Like all week, this week, every single piece is like, even Emil Heskey managed to score against. That was like one of the most famous games.
I haven't heard that.
One of the most famous games in world football history, Owen. Like Michael Owen, who played for the team that Nathan supported at that time alongside Emil Heskey. That's a very easy question.
And Stephen Gerrard, 5 Liverpool goal scorers on the day. So
that's a very, very easy question.
Ger, Czech Republic and the Netherlands will go head-to-head in this round in a very Euro 2004 clash. Their group stage encounter in 2004 was one of the best games the tournament has ever seen. But can you tell me which player from those teams ended the tournament as the top scorer?
Milan Baros.
Correct. There you go. Happy families now. Everybody got a point out of that round. The very easy round 3. Round 4 is the fun-free magic number round. The contestants.
Can I just say, Owen, you obviously forget that we're old. That like we saw these games the first time round. You need to go back a bit further if you're going to be like,
or come a bit more recent.
Yeah, sorry, absolutely. Anything recent, and we are screwed. But like that was the time when we were literally, and that was the only thing that we could do was watch those games. There was nothing else on. The internet barely existed.
Didn't we do year by year during the start of the pandemic for the crappy quiz? And I'm pretty sure there was very unimpressive scores in 2002, 2003, 2004. So you get one question correct and you're giving the big one I mean, it's fine though. You're all on a point. Well done. You did very well, all three of you there. Round 4 is the fun-free magic number round. Contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point. I'm going to say that we can only accept the answer that's written on your paper, and I'm going to have to ask for your pens once the music ends. So, if you don't mind, give us the following number. The number of years on Caoimhín Kelleher's New Deal at Liverpool, plus the number of teams that play in the NHL, plus the number of teams that are set to play at the 2026 World Cup, plus the number of birthdays Luka Modric has had in his lifetime. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beads. So, how many years on that new Caoimhín Kelleher deal at Liverpool? How many teams play in the NHL? How many teams are going to be at the 2026 World Cup finals? And how many birthdays has Luka Modric celebrated in his lifetime? Add them all up, what do you get? Hands down. Adrian?
I'm worried I might have overshot the runway with 75.
75. Ger?
91.
91. Nathan?
112.
The answer is 120. Nathan gets closest, Ger gets second closest.
32 NHL teams rather than 24.
32 indeed. Caoimhín Kelleher got 5 years, 48 teams.
Did Caoimhín Kelleher not get 3 years?
No, 5 years.
No, 5 years.
48 teams at the 2026 World Cup, and Luka Modric has had 35 birthdays, which brings your total to 120. And unfortunately, Adrian, you're left behind on 1 point. Nathan, you move into the lead on 3 points. Ger, you are in second place on 2 points. We move on to the final.
What a quiz of mediocrity this is.
Everything is going so well at the moment. This is a great quiz. This is the best, most sensible quiz we've had in a long time, and I think we're all just happy for it. So thank you for playing. Our winner tonight will be decided in the round.
Thank you for coming in.
Our winner.
Sorry, Tender Chicken 56 on YouTube says the answer to the last round was 69.
Hey. Well, what was what in response to what? Okay. Our winner tonight will be decided in the round. I thought you weren't joking there for a second. I was like, what? Okay. Our winner tonight will be decided in the round that separates.
There's a Gavin Ensign joke in here somewhere, isn't there?
Men from the boys, the Leon Goretzkas from the Leon the Professionals. It's an old theme in particular, ridiculously easy rapid fire round.
Don't insult Owen's mate.
I know. I was going to mention his name, but.
The score you get in this round will be added to your score in the previous round. There will be 40 seconds for everyone to answer from the same set of questions. So we're going to start with the person with the highest number of points, which is Nathan, down to the second person, which is Ger, and then on to the person last, which is Adrian. Any more YouTube comments, Ger, before we get into the rapid fire round?
This is the best round I've seen in ages. Not a clue.
There you go. Thank you very much. Okay, so Nathan, are you ready?
Yes.
What was that exactly?
Give him credit.
What's going on there?
Yeah, I should have given his name. Yeah, he's looking up something.
Yes, exactly.
No, I'm writing the scores down because I
have them here.
Keep my own. I track them myself because we all know
nobody's surprised about
can't
that.
be trusted.
It's true. I really can't be. Nathan, your 40 seconds starts now. Name the National League Division 3 football champions.
Come on.
Longford.
No, Derry. Trae Young plays for which NBA franchise, Ger?
The Rockets.
No, the Atlanta Hawks. Megan Campbell signed for which club this week,
Liverpool.
Adrian? Correct. Who is the Sevilla manager?
Andres Iniesta.
No, Julian Lopetegui. Nathan Collins signed for Burnley from which club this week, Nathan?
Stoke.
Correct. In what year did Ireland last win a gold medal at the Olympics?
2012.
Correct. AFLW Ashley McCarthy is from which county?
Tipperary.
Correct. Who finished bottom of Belgium's group in this year's Euros?
Doesn't matter. Who finished bottoms of Belgium's group doesn't really matter at all.
Go on, but you're a football man, so let's have it.
Well, I'm just trying to remember who was in Belgium's
Rapid fire.
It was Russia.
That was so last week.
Russia. So that brings you back a little bit, but it's not going to matter, Nathan. You are the champion once again. The champ is back.
Unknown NBA player versus Megan Campbell signing for Liverpool.
Listen, you either know them or you know them. You either know them. I have to say, whatever about Megan Campbell, all those other ones were Nathan's questions there were all 2-yard tap-ins. They were.
Joey Lopetegui was pretty bloody easy.
Well, it's not as easy as all those. Like, where's Ashley McCarthy from? Do us a favour.
Andres Iniesta.
Bring back Tommy.
Nathan, what do you have to say for yourself as champ?
Oh yeah, lads. Yeah. Down. Andy back into you.
Jesus.
Need Tommy for inspiration.
All right, that is the crappy quiz for this week. Congratulations to Nathan. Commiserations.
First one in a while.
To Adrian and Ger. We'll have.
So once you couldn't screw me over.
We'll have a new lineup next week. Chat to you then.
Chris Waddle.
Oh, you're kidding me. September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right?
I know it's not right.
Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
A few comments coming in suggesting that Ger looking at YouTube was slightly conscious of the rules, which is a notion I can definitely get behind, that he was getting tapped up for some of the answers.
It's a good point. Good point. Reading out YouTube comments is probably going to need to be something we need to rule out in future. It's people often get in touch with their correct opinions, correct answers, and Stuart's inquiry, if he had won, but he didn't win, so it doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, Tender Chicken is normally somebody that does lash in the, to be fair, this time, wildly incorrect and obviously going for the humorous vote with an answer that's sometimes quite close to the money. Will says that surely the Champions League version of quizzes includes Phil, who destroys all comers.
Good point.
Like he really does. Has he ever been in a quiz that he hasn't won?
He has, yeah. He's been beaten. He's been. I think that's why he hasn't been available for quite some time. I think he's reeling after a number of defeats in 2021.
And Nathan wins, says Andrew Geraghty. Tommy Rooney dislikes this.
Yeah.
Dara O'Toole follows up with, seriously, this is the best live telly in Ireland every week, and Ger doing his best to sabotage the quiz again, whinging when he doesn't know Trae Young.
Yeah. Also, this is a big moment. Ger was like, some unknown NBA player. All of Atlanta is going to turn on Ger Gilroy, just like the Welsh Dragon chased him at the start of the year. Unknown NBA player Trae Young will have his championship ring, or at least his conference trophy, and shove it in his face over the next couple of weeks. I'm calling it now. This is that's a cold take exposed.
Trae Young and Die Young, they're all coming for. They're all coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just happy we got through this in a fairly civil manner.
Unscathed. Fair point. 9:43, it's OTB AM. We're delighted to have you along with us this morning. There's a load of brilliant comments that have come into us over the course of the day. All the very best bits you can check up on our YouTube channel, or indeed subscribe to any of our podcasts, podcast series, and also download the app. It's the easiest way to get everything at your fingertips. So do that. Just search OTB Sports in your app store and you shall get it there. And as you know, OTB AM brought to you by Gillette. Good mornings start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. We're excited, by the way, to remind you that OTB Sports will be broadcasting full live commentary of all 9 matches from the British and Irish Lions tour of South Africa, and Brian O'Driscoll, Alan Quinlan are going to be alongside Neil Tracy on commentary for the 3 test games. Devin Toner, Niamh Briggs, Jack Carty and Andy Dunn and others will be among our co-commentary lineup for the warm-up games, and it all starts on Saturday when Andy and Neil will bring you the 3 o'clock kickoff live on News Talk. Lions against Japan, live from Murrayfield, and our coverage brought to you in association with Vodafone, who are the lead partner of the British and Irish Lions. We're back tonight with Brian O'Driscoll on the Classic Game Club. Owen told you about that a bit earlier on. We're going to be breaking down the Lions and South Africa's second test from 2009, and like that match, it's an absolute belter. OTB AM back on Monday, 7:30. A huge amount of action to react to, and we'll be doing that with Eoin and Jerry. You can subscribe to the OTB AM podcast. For now, we're going to leave you with a little bit of Chris Waddle from last night.
To talk about England's progress so far, I'm delighted to be joined by a man who played 62 times for England. Chris Waddle is with us. Evening, Chris.
Good evening.
This feels like a very English tournament so far. They have topped their group. They haven't conceded a goal, but also maybe on the verge of some sort of crisis.
Yeah, I think they've done enough. The way they're putting it across is they've managed the group well to win it. That was the object. I think Croatia game they played pretty well. I thought it was a difficult game, but I thought on the day they deserved that 1-0 win. Didn't really turn up against Scotland. Give Scotland credit for their performance. And obviously the other night against Czech Republic, it was fits and starts. For 15 minutes they looked, and they had the tempo about them and they were moving the ball quick. They looked like they were going to add, more than goals they did score. So, but there was long periods in that game where they come off the pace and Czech Republic caused them a few problems. So they haven't got it quite right yet, but they'll be delighted that they've won the group.
What's happened has almost been the reverse of what was predicted in some ways, which was that England have a vast array of attacking talent that could rip apart most teams, but defensively and in goals there were some question marks, whereas during the 3 games, actually defensively they look very solid, whereas there've been a lot of questions about Harry Kane, about Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, about who should start, who shouldn't. Do you think that is to do with the way that they're setting up? Is Gareth Southgate setting up to protect that defence?
Not really. I think John Stones obviously saw at Man City this season, sort of wasn't in the team. Then all of a sudden he came back a new man, and he's carried that form on. Obviously, Lakes McQuay played him the other night, but they've got to still manage him because he's been out a long time. Mings come in and did very well, but you've got to say Jordan Pickford's played very well when he's been called upon to keep the ball out of the net. He's done it very well. So, and the fullbacks they keep chopping and changing, which I don't get. I don't understand that. So defensively, and also you've got Race and Phillips sitting in front, which are 2 good players who are strong, physically good, and they can also protect. So I think the concern has been the front 4 is such, what is the best front 4? Normally, as you say, they're scratching around looking to think who's going to play full-back, who's going to play centre-half, go and get it right, but they've got it all right. And the problem now is, which normally it isn't, is the front 4.
So what is his best front 4 as you see it?
Me personally, I thought Saka did well the other night. I know it was a good game to come in on Czech Republic. I think we're quite happy they'd qualified, so they weren't really thinking, we're in the next round, we're not going home, we've done the job. Yes, we'll have a go at England, but it was a very low-key game, and so Saka looks sharp, obviously coming in, he's going to try and grab the shirt, and I think he's done enough to get the shirt against Germany. He'll not drop Harry Kane. Harry Kane, we know, is a quality player. He does look very tired to me. Looks quite leggy. And obviously Sterling scored 2, so he's going to keep Raheem Sterling in. And then it becomes obviously Mason Mount having to isolate. Jack Grealish got his chance, but as a 10 really, and Jack probably in his dreams wanted to play as a 10. But I've got to say, I think Jack Grealish is more effective on the left-hand side.
Yeah, it's interesting. John Giles was on today with us as well, and he was saying that Jack Grealish was brilliant and created the goal out on the left-hand side, and when he went out there he was causing absolute havoc, but when he came back into the middle, into maybe what is his preferred role, as you say, he couldn't quite have the same effect. Does that open a possibility that you could play Grealish on the left and play Phil Foden as a number 10 against Germany?
Yeah, the problem then is he's got to leave Raheem Sterling out, or Saka. Saka got man of the match. So I don't think Saka will get left out after that performance. And for all Raheem Sterling's performance, I'm not saying his performance was outstanding. he's the only player who looks like he's going to score a goal for it. And, he's got two. And, he's always around that box. He's always trying to get the goals. We know that. But he's so it'd be hard for him to play Grealish on the left. Now, could he say to Raheem Sterling, play as a 10? But I don't think that's Raheem Sterling's game. I think we need Sterling's pace. It's showed in this tour when teams do try and squeeze with. And watching Germany that night against Hungary, the one thing what they haven't got as a team is pace at the back. And Raheem Sterling could really exploit that. So I think he'd go definitely with Sterling. And he may have said to Grealish, if Mount's not available, obviously, he might say to Grealish, you're going to have to play it. But in another way, he could play Bellingham in there and play a 3. And let him be a midfield player who wanders around and gets involved in. So he's got other options, but I think he'd give, if Mount's not available, I think he'd give Grealish another chance.
Yeah. Looking at Grealish, that was probably the biggest game of his career so far the other night, and there was so much hype and expectation and talk, and when he did get on the ball, you could see he was always trying to do something. There didn't seem to be any fear at all. When you look at Grealish as a quality attacking player, someone who loved to get on the ball, someone who loved to run at defences, how do you rate him? How highly do you rate Jack Grealish?
Oh, he's an exciting player. I think he's got better with age, as you do, and he's had a good couple of seasons there with Villa, playing basically on the left-hand side though, and yeah, when he picks it up, he's very positive. I like, he likes to lend the ball, he likes little 1-2s, little give and goes. He did ever so well for the goal the other night, we know that. And he draws free kicks in dangerous positions. He gets fouled a lot. He draws people in. He holds on to the ball probably a couple of seconds more than everybody else. So he does encourage people to have a tackle at him. And if he just moves the ball before the tackle arrives, he wins a lot of free kicks. I mean, we're talking about a lot here, which could be, a big part of the game because it could come down to set pieces, the game against Germany. So yeah, I like him, as I say, on the left because he gets one-on-one with the fullback a lot, and he runs them back. He pushes them back towards their goal. And, we've got a lot of talented players, but probably Grealish is the best at doing that.
A lot of the talk throughout the tournament has been on Harry Kane and the fact that he's looked a little bit leggy at times and he hasn't scored a goal yet and really hasn't had any chances so far across the 3 games. It's not like he's missing them either. Do you think it's something Gareth Southgate is spending a lot of time having to think about what he does with Harry Kane? Can he drop Harry Kane, or is it straightforward, you just have to trust that at some stage his talent is going to shine through during this tournament?
Yeah, I think it's about that. I think he's captain as well. You can't keep taking it. You can't really, you nominate your captain. Your captain normally is you want one player who you think, well, I'm going to play him every game. He's my captain. And he's took him off in a couple of games, but rightly so. He hasn't been performing. You've got to, if you're the one who's going to put the ball in the back of the net and you're not doing it, then it's not long before they say, we've got to change it. And but I still think you'll go with him again. And if he's obviously not performing as the game goes on, yes, you could see him coming off and whether Rashford, Calvert-Lewin, someone of that sort of player will come on and take his role. But I think he'll go along with him. I think Harry at times is, there's a lot of debate about him coming too deep at times, and I don't think he's come as much deep. That's how he plays at Tottenham, and it's up to players to run behind him. When the centre-halves don't come him, he gets the ball, he can turn, he can link the play. I think he's trying too hard, in fact. I mean, the first 3 balls the other night against the Czech Republic, he tried 3 cross-field passes, really difficult passes, and they got cut out. And you thought, just play simple for it, just get your confidence going. And the goals coming. He had one good chance, which was a great save by the goalkeeper of the Czech Republic first half. But as I say, he's always played like that, and it's up to other players to run off him. But I can see where Gareth was thinking, to win a tournament, you need a goal scorer, to be fair. And it's, apart from Raheem Sterling, there's nobody looks like putting the ball in it.
I'm sure there were moments, Chris, not many of them during your career, where maybe there was a dip in form. When you talk about Harry Kane there at times trying too hard, how do you work through that? Is it the right word at the right time for a manager, or is it just a ball bouncing in off his backside and a bit of confidence comes back?
Yeah, that's it. Just he's a goal scorer, Harry, so he just anything, listen, it comes off his shoulder or whatever, it comes off his knee and it goes in. That's what he wants to get, the confidence. It's basically just saying to him, look, you can't really tell Harry Kane now. He's been playing the game a long time. He's, you're basically just saying, look, go out there, do what you're good at, go and enjoy it. And Don't think about things. Don't think I've got to do this and I've got to do that, because you're putting pressure on yourself. You want them really just to go out there, relax, go and play his game, and you will see, just play like you play. And confidence is a key word. And, all this bit of criticism you'll be getting from the media, from the fans, it may be, getting to him a little bit, but he's been around long enough now for him to say, look, I'm just going to go out there, I'm going to play my game. If I get the chances, hopefully they'll go in. If they don't, I'll keep working at it. And if he has to eventually lose his shirt to another player, he can't really turn around and say, no, that's wrong, I shouldn't have been dropped, because he's judged on, if Gary Lineker wasn't scoring goals and Alan Sheahan wasn't scoring goals, people would have said, you've got to change your centre forward. And that is a role. He's not one of them players who's a midfield player or a winger who's trying to create. He's the one who's putting the ball in the net forward most of the time. So if it's not happening, unfortunately, if you're not scoring the goals and that's your job, you will lose your shirt eventually.
You mentioned that base that Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips provide, and particularly in that first game against Croatia, Calvin Phillips seemed to have a bit more freedom to roam forward and obviously made a key intervention for the first goal. We've seen him stay alongside Declan Rice a bit more in the subsequent games. Do they need that base? Do they need both of those players to provide the protection for the defence? Or could Declan Rice do that job by himself and actually free up that extra midfield role for a more creative presence?
You could. I mean, people are saying, why don't they play Mount and Grealish in there with Rice or with Phillips? I just think Gareth likes this. They do push the fullbacks on quite a lot, England, and I think he does like that bit of security. The two holding midfielder players who can, if the centre half gets drawn to the wing, they can drop in to become a centre half, and the other one can go and obviously press the ball a bit. So he does like that, and I've got to say, Declan Rice at West Ham does make runs forward a lot more than he does for England. It's the old one. It's thinking, I'm going to go. You can see a ball going down the wing. You think, I'm going. You can say to Phillips, I'm going. I may score. I'm going in the box. And he's got the legs and the energy to get back anyway. I'd like to see them be a bit more. As you see, Cal Phillips in the first game did really go forward and ran past Kane and came onto Kane a lot, where the next two games he didn't ever get forward again. And Phillips is a great passer of the ball, so when he does get it off the back four, he can, hit it 50, 40-yard passes. He's very good at that. He does it at Leeds every week. He is more creative than what he's probably shown in an England shirt at the minute. But, it's the old school for me. If a midfield player goes, the other one sits. There's no reason. Phillips can go and join in. And he is a talented footballer. So it's not like saying, well, we need Grealish and Mount, because Phillips can do things on the ball. So he just needs that little bit more confidence and that little bit more freedom to say, go join in. Declan Rice is sitting, and if Declan Rice goes forward, you sit. It's not rocket science.
It'll be a very different game as well on Tuesday than what they've had so far, you'd have to expect. Germany, their last two matches have been a bit helter-skelter. While they're playing three at the back and they're playing the wing-backs, they're not afraid to bomb players forward. The three teams England have played so far have more or less sat back and tried to invite England and say, show us what you got, create something. Actually, when you look at that pace that Raheem Sterling has and Kane potentially dropping deep and releasing them, that may suit far better against a team like Germany who'll come to play than the teams we've seen them face so far.
But it's going to be interesting. I mean, Joachim Löw is saying that you'll see a different Germany at Wembley. Listen, they've had a funny start as well. They lost the first game to France and didn't really play well. They played really well against Portugal, really well. And then, obviously, I watched the Hungary game, and Hungary, took the lead twice, couldn't hold on. We know Hungary like to sit back and make it really difficult for you. And Germany, as Germany do, they push people on, they move the ball, they keep plugging away, and they got the reward with a draw, which obviously gets them through to play England. But listen, this is not a German side of years where, like the one was in Brazil and maybe after that. This is a sort of a changing period now in German football. The new ones are coming through, and they're basically saying to the older players, look, this is our last tournament, we're still good enough to win it. Maybe we're not as strong as we've been over the years, but we have still got a chance. And they'll believe coming to England, the pressure's on England, it's at Wembley, it's Germany. Obviously, England fans really get pumped up about it. So, they'll be coming in thinking, look, this is a free pass for us. We can go there and relax and go and play. If England get beat, they're going to get the criticism. We'll get the praise. If we get beat, people will say England's better than Germany at the minute. So they've got no pressure. Again, for me, this is a free hit at England. I don't think, I don't think many people are tipping Germany to beat England. So, and because of all the games England have had at Wembley, another home game, people are saying, not going to get a better chance to win this tournament with all the games at Wembley. So I think Germany will come in. Be interested to see what he plays. He is worried about the pace of Sterling and Saka if he plays, or Foden if he plays. They will be weary of that because this back three do play very wide, and there's a lot of gaps down the sides. And if you want to run in behind, you can get away from Hummels and that. They're not the quickest. That is a concern. Will we see a different Germany where they'll sit back and try and hit England on the break and make it more tactical? So he said we're going to see a different Germany, so we'll see.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and